What's happening, everybody? I'll leave that off for now. Welcome to another episode of Facemask Fantasy. Happy Thursday. Happy first day of the final week of the NFL preseason. A couple of final games of first games, initial games of the week 3 preseason week 3 slate kickoff tonight. And I don't remember who those teams are because we're just looking forward to getting the preseason over with. We're not necessarily looking forward to watching. In all likelihood, no stars, no major players from a fantasy perspective are going to play this week. This is the final tune-up game and an opportunity for backups to get some additional run, some extra run. And then the guys that are on the roster bubble are going to get, this is their last pretty much extended look from the coaching staff, an opportunity to cement their roster spot with the team. We've got Steelers-Panthers tonight and Giants-Patriots. So 2 games, 2 preseason games to start this final week of preseason. And then everything really starts to kick into high gear with the first game of the season less than 2 weeks away. So there's probably a lot of folks where drafts have still not taken place, right? More and more people are, they hold their draft as late as they possibly can to avoid and mitigate as much risk as they possibly can. In all likelihood, a lot of drafts took place this past weekend, but not a lot. Again, guys still get injured in practice, and so it makes sense to hold your draft as long, as late, as close to the start of the season as you possibly can. So if you have not drafted yet, if it's not this weekend, it's probably next weekend. This is what I'm here for. Here to hopefully help. Here for lend any thoughts, insight that you may have. I have highlighted some rookies that I like, some targets in general that I like, some guys that I'm fading. All of these videos are on the channel, all available for you to check out. If there's any one particular player that I haven't talked about that you would like me to discuss, I am happy to do that. If there is a strategy that you want to talk about today, I am happy to do that. We are in the final stretch to mold your draft plan, and we will, we'll do what we can to make that happen. If you have not drafted yet, now's the time. Whatever you need from me, thoughts on a player, thoughts on a situation, thoughts on a strategy, rookies that I like, players that I'm fading, players that I'm targeting. We can get into any and all of that today. And of course, another mock draft for anybody who may find it helpful. I will leave it up for a little bit of time to give folks an opportunity to join. Again, if it's found helpful, if I right now there's not anybody in there, that's totally fine. That's okay. I made folks aware of this stream a little late. But I'm happy to take part in it all the same. I'll kick things off and claim a spot. So anybody's welcome to join with a valid sleeper ID. If you're interested in mock drafting, what's going on, Theo? Feel free to jump in. I will talk about your team after it is built, give some feedback, and it would be an opportunity for you to maybe see what a specific build or what a certain makeup might look like. And whether or not it's to your liking or not, because it's just practice and before the real thing. Not too many news and note items today. But there's a couple of things that we are monitoring and that we will keep an eye on. Lamar Jackson suffered what looks like a minor injury in practice yesterday. He's fine. I think he was already back out there today. Couple of minor trades, not really fantasy relevant. Devon Vele gets traded by the Denver Broncos to the New Orleans Saints. I think that is a vote of confidence for guys like Pat Bryant and Troy Franklin. Cortland Sutton is obviously locked into his wide receiver 1 role with the Denver Broncos. Marvin Mims has some type of role. We are not 100% sure what it is. He doesn't really clear 40% of the snaps on a week-to-week basis up to this point in his career. Maybe that's turning around. Maybe that's turning a corner. I think more than anything, though, the Devon Vele trade is a bit of a vote of confidence for the depth guys that they have, Troy Franklin and Pat Bryant. So this is probably shaping up to be some type of like wide receiver 2 rotation behind Sutton. If you're interested in Marvin Mims, I totally get it. He's a big-time explosive playmaker. It's just that it's a bit sporadic, his production. We're hoping for a third-year leap. We'll see if he can take that next step. He's in a good offense with a good quarterback, with a good head coach. Or we'll see if Pat Bryant and or Troy Franklin are the guys that kind of take over as the wide receiver 2. You're welcome to take a dart throw on any one of those guys closer to the end of the draft. Mims is going to be the most expensive of the 3, and then Bryant and Franklin in that order. So, whatever, if you feel like one of those guys is worth taking a shot on, it's a good offense. These are worth taking. It's worth taking dart throws on shots on those types of guys in good offenses. The Buccaneers are going to activate Chris Godwin and left tackle Tristan Wirfs from the PUP list, or that is their plan. And they will have them on the 53-man roster to start the season. However, their timelines are very similar. We are not expecting either Chris Godwin or Tristan Wirfs to play football for Tampa Bay until October. So I've talked about this. I've talked about this a few times over the past few weeks. My concern for the Buccaneers is that they don't necessarily hit expectations relative to what we have for them for the first month of the season, being down their starting left tackle and one of their starting wide receivers. I think Baker Mayfield is a very good quarterback who is a risky fantasy pick this year because, he's going to be without Godwin for probably the first month of the year. And then whatever he is able to provide get right away coming back could be less than 100% of what we typically expect from Chris Godwin. And then with Wirfs, I've mentioned this multiple times. He's a top 3 offensive tackle in the NFL. He's that good. He's in the Lane Johnson, Penei Sewell conversation. Tristan Wirfs is in that tier, in that pantheon of elite tackles. Not having him is a critical loss for Tampa Bay. So, tread with a little bit of caution, maybe not with a guy like Bucky Irving or a guy who's been doing it forever in Mike Evans, but Baker in particular. I think Baker's really good. I think he might be a good buy low candidate at the quarterback position, maybe week 4 or 5 of the season. This offense could be a candidate to get off to a slow start relative to expectations just because of these losses. That being said, rookie preseason training camp sensation, Emeka Egbuka, at this point is probably worth drafting in the 6th round or higher, 5th or 6th round of at least half PPR scoring and almost certainly full PPR scoring. Godwin is not going to play football the month of September. That seems to be about as close to a certainty as a non-NFL confirmed headline can get. So we're probably not going to have Chris Godwin until October. And then what? What percentage of Chris Godwin are we getting as he works his way back from the ankle injury that he suffered last year? So, that role is going to go to Egbuka. And then on top of that, Jalen McMillan suffered a serious neck injury. I don't recall if it was in a practice or if it was in one of the preseason games, but he suffered a neck injury that was enough for the Bucs to put him on IR. And it's likely that he's not going to play until week 8 or 9 at the earliest. I mean, Egbuka is going to see as many targets as he can handle. And as a round 1 rookie, he's going to have pretty high expectations from the jump. fair or not, Egbuka is going to have high expectations to fill a significant role, a sizable role in this Bucks passing attack. I think it's fair to say 5th or 6th round is perfectly fine. And just to piggyback on the question about Egbuka, I probably would take him over guys like Chris Olave and Jacoby Myers. And then, Adunze is that cutoff, right? And then it comes down to personal preference. Egbuka over Olave, I mean, yeah, for all of the issues that the Bucks have on offense right now, Tristan Wirfs, Chris Godwin, they still have Baker, who is miles better than any quarterback currently on the Saints roster. So I feel better about Egbuka right now, drafting Egbuka over Chris Olave. I feel better drafting him over Jacoby Myers, who I like. I think Egbuka has, he has that fun, exciting, unknown rookie upside. And again, we're expecting it to be we're expecting to be a better offense than Vegas. I mean, they did bring in Geno Smith, so the quarterback play should be better. So Vegas's quarterback play should be solid, but when Tristan Wirfs does come back, the offensive line is significantly better than Vegas's offensive line. So the parts in Vegas's offense are not completely as good as the Bucks parts. They are both the same in their respective offenses. They are their team's wide receiver 2 or weapon 2 in Myers' case, because Bowers is going to soak up all of the targets. That's the difference, though, I guess, between Mike Evans, who is one of the top dogs for the Bucks, and Brock Bowers, who is top dog for the Raiders. Mike Evans might not dominate targets. He's going to dominate from the perspective that he's Mike freaking Evans, and even at age 31, I expect 1,000 yards from him on the season. Bowers is going to dominate targets for the Raiders. Mike Evans might not necessarily dominate targets for the Buccaneers. In fact, Mike Evans is their best downfield threat and biggest playmaker. Egbuka could be the one that leads this team in targets. So by that measurement, he could be the Bucks wide receiver 1 from a target volume perspective. So yeah, I would take at this point Egbuka over Olave and over Jacoby Myers. Rome Odunze is the cutoff, and it comes down to personal preference. How much do you believe in the Bears? How much do you believe in Odunze himself? How much do you believe in Ben Johnson? How much do you believe in Caleb Williams? There are a lot of different factors at play there. And then with Egbuka, it's just how much do you trust Egbuka? Because we know we're pretty confident we can trust the Bucks offense. Yes, the Tristan Wirfs injury hurts. That first month of the season, that hurts. But we are expecting him back at some point, let's say week 5, week 6 of the season. Ideally, it's sooner than later. We're not 100% sure right now. So I would say Baker's getting that ball out quick. A lot of short and intermediate throws, right? That could be Egbuka's wheelhouse. Odunze is poised by all accounts, and maybe by some want of the industry, to break out as last year's 9th overall pick in an ascending offense. We hope it's an ascending offense anyway. But is DJ Moore that team's wide receiver 1 still? Will he dominate targets? Will Odunze take that next step forward and be the one who dominates targets? He's got a chance to. I don't know that he will. And then, what the Bears have is a plethora of other options, though. Luther Burden, Colston Loveland, both of whom are the new head coach's personal selections. I mean, along with obviously the rest of the organization. But Rome Odunze predates Ben Johnson. That doesn't mean that he can't end up being a focal point of this offense, but there's a lot of mouths to feed here, some of which were handpicked by the current coaching staff. Odunze is not one of those players. We expect him to be a main contributor for the Bears, but how much? We don't know. That's an unknown right now. That's a 50-50 call. Odunze has been ahead of Egbuka in ADP all season long, all off season long. That could change. That absolutely could be flip-flopped in any drafts upcoming that haven't taken place yet. And I don't think it's unfair. I think it's warranted. With Godwin's expected extended absence, Jalen McMillan's guaranteed extended absence, we're not going to see him until week 8 or 9. So Egbuka feels like of that cluster of wide receivers, the guy who's most likely to get the most targets. So yeah, just to piggyback on the news and notes about Godwin and Tristan Wirfs, stock is up for Egbuka. First round grade, first round wide receiver. The vibes have been good, and guess what? They need him. They need him to start the season. So I don't blame you if you want to go with Dunze over Egbuka. I don't blame you if you want to go Egbuka over Dunze. But guys like Olave and Jacoby Myers, yeah, at this point I have a Egbuka for redraft ahead of those two. Johnny Wilson, season-ending surgery for the depth receiver for the Eagles. Shedeur Sanders is expected to play in the Browns' third preseason game. That's good. He needs the reps. Jalen Polk, another depth wide receiver, undergoing season-ending shoulder surgery. This could mean a bit of an emergence for Efton Chisholm, the Patriots' undrafted free agent this year, who is making headway, making some waves in camp. T. Higgins quote unquote, hobbled off the practice field on Thursday, but he did eventually go back in. So doesn't seem like he's any worse for wear. Should be fine. And then Dan Quinn, head coach Dan Quinn, was asked about the Commanders' current situation in their backfield today, and if Chris Rodriguez will replace Brian Robinson as the short yardage back, and he said yes. It sounds like, no matter what happens. I was initially thinking, I talked about this on Tuesday when it was, when I talked with you guys about the Brian Robinson news over the weekend for the first time. I initially was thinking to myself, even if they don't trade, even if Washington doesn't trade Brian Robinson, he's still going to be on the team and he's going to get work because he's in the last year of his rookie deal. And it doesn't cost the team anything to give him opportunities. If they're done with him long-term, they don't have to re-sign him next year. They can just let him walk, but they'll give him work because they can, because they have him, and it's like, might as well. Now I'm not so sure that that's going to be the case if they fail to trade him. I still don't envision him getting released. I still don't envision Brian Robinson getting cut because, again, it is a player that is on the last year of his rookie deal, and he was a third-round pick. He's not making that much money against the cap in the grand scheme of things. So it doesn't benefit Washington to just release him outright. They're not saving a whole heck of a lot of money there. So you might as well, if you have the guy on your roster, you might as well use him. You might as well get run out of him. And then if you don't want to re-sign him next year, you just let him walk. Now I'm not 100% sure that that's the case because head coach Dan Quinn came out today in response to a question about Chris Rodriguez potentially taking over some of Brian Robinson's old role and basically saying yes. And then he, quote, I would say there are also parts of our offense that are a little bit untraditional, unquote. I need to dig into what the context of whatever that means is. But they essentially sound like they are done with Brian Robinson, regardless of whether they successfully trade him or not. So, if you have dynasty shares or you're playing best ball and you have some shares of Brian Robinson, now my on a scale of 1 to 10, am I worried if Brian Robinson is going to suit up week 1 or not? Now, I initially I was at a 1 or 2 because it's like he's going to get traded, he's going to get acclimated. Maybe his role won't be great week 1 with a new offense and a new scheme, but the acquiring team is going to be interested in putting him out there and getting him out there because they just spent assets to get him. Now it's like, well, if he's still going to be on Washington's roster week 1, now my concern is that he plays week 1 is more like at a 5 or a 6. They seem like they have moved on already. That's what the coach speak seems to be. There's only so much we can take when it comes to coach speak and how much we believe it. And, things can change quickly behind the scenes. Brian Robinson could still end up having a role, I guess, with Washington if, in fact, they fail to trade him. But that seems less likely now. It doesn't seem as likely that Brian Robinson will have a role in Washington, even if they fail to trade him. I still have a hard time believing, though, that they release him outright. Anyway, whatever happens to Brian Robinson is TBD, and we'll reevaluate whatever situation emerges based on where he ends up, where Robinson ends up. But as far as Washington, I mean, especially in full PPR leagues, I'm more than happy to draft Austin Eckler everywhere. I don't know that his role significantly changes, but I mean, when you take away your primary first and second down runner, it could organically sprinkle down. Yes, okay. Croskey-Merritt, the darling of the preseason and offseason so far. Chris Rodriguez, Jeremy McNichols, some combination of those guys are going to get first and second down reps. But don't you think like Eckler's going to mix in there a little bit more now as well? Maybe not significantly, but marginally. And then on top of that, he's still going to have his third down pass catching role. Austin Eckler is officially a rock solid, boring target. I don't think his ADP is going to change all that much. I think Croskey-Merritt is the guy that everybody's going to be leaping and going to get, which is totally fine. I've seen his ADP on Underdog like skyrocket all the way up to 130. I saw somebody in a best ball draft take him at like 101 or 102. I was like, holy hell, man, that's so high for a guy who I know we have a lot of excitement and potential for Croskey-Merritt, but like, man, 10th round for this guy is, I know you're not breaking the bank, but this was a dude who was not even on the radar a month ago. It's funny how as we get closer to the season, how quickly we see things change. Obviously, the dynamic changed. Brian Robinson appears to be on the way out. I would just say, if you miss out, if you are really into Croskey-Merritt and you want to take a shot on him in the 10th round, it might take the 9th round at this point, to be honest. And if you miss, or if somebody in your league just goes hog wild and takes him in the 8th round or the 7th or 8th round, that's where Brian Robinson is going. If they just basically, swap Croskey-Merritt for Brian Robinson in the draft, that should leave Eckler pretty much untouched from an ADP perspective. If I'm in a half, and certainly if I'm in a full PPR scoring league, that's the guy that I now have my eye on a little bit more as a depth running back add for my bench. He's boring at this point, right? He's older, but I think it's a combination of things when it comes to Brian Robinson. Obviously, Austin Eckler is difficult to compare one-to-one to Brian Robinson because they play two different roles. Robinson is their first and second down guy. Eckler is their third down guy, right? So their roles are not the same. But it's got to be a vote of confidence on top of Croskey-Merritt and Chris Rodriguez and Jeremy McNichols that they feel good about Austin Eckler as not only their third down guy, but the veteran presence in the backfield to keep things stable, keep things moving as they move on, as they transition away from Brian Robinson. Eckler looks like a really good, 11th round. Maybe he sneaks into the 10th round with Croskey-Merritt, again, whose ADP has absolutely skyrocketed the past couple of weeks. Honestly, the past couple of days. Eckler might be the name that I'm looking at in half and full PPR. And then again, if somebody goes hog wild and takes Croskey-Merritt super high, 7th or 8th round in your redraft league, you could also look at Chris Rodriguez as like a dart throw at the end of your draft. Again, if you're looking for dirt cheap running back depth, it sounds like Rodriguez might get some extra run here. And I would expect that to maybe be the case early on in the season. It's more likely, for all the hype and excitement that Croskey-Merritt has generated, the last time we saw something like this was Isaiah Pacheco, right? His emergence with the Chiefs as a 7th round rookie, way off the radar, but it was kind of an ambiguous, unsettled backfield. I don't remember if there was an injury or their guys just got old when they had like Damian Williams, and who the heck else did the Chiefs have at running back not so long ago? like those 2018, 2019, 2020 seasons, like Damian Williams, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That's what it, oh my God. What could have been. Similar situation with Pacheco and Croskey-Merritt, right? 7th round rookie, generates some buzz and some intrigue in the offseason. He didn't have a regular role, Pacheco, right away. They leaned on their veterans, the Chiefs did early on in the season, and Pacheco emerged once again a little bit later in the season. Maybe week 5, 6, 7 is when he took over. So Chris Rodriguez looks like he could be that Damian Williams-esque guy for at least the first couple weeks of the season. If you end up with a 0 running back build or a modified hero running back build, and you're looking for some running back depth at the end of your draft, and somebody took Croskey-Merritt super early, and maybe you missed on Eckler in the 10th or 11th round, you could take Chris Rodriguez in the 15th. Just some food for thought. Just some food for thought. And then head coach Dan Quinn, gave him some love earlier today. Quentin Johnston is still in concussion protocol for the Chargers. So we'll continue to keep an eye on Keandre Lambert-Smith. I think I saw that Trey Harris was not practicing today either, but I could be wrong on that. Multiple teams looking at the trade market for running backs. The Saints are one. The Chiefs are one. Who was the other team? Somebody else was looking for running back depth in the trade market. The Chiefs and the Saints were 2 of them. Anyway. Oh, the Browns. The Saints, the Browns, and the Chiefs are in search of running back additions. So I think the Browns one is the most significant. Because Quinshon Judkins has still not signed his rookie contract. I know that the charges have been dropped with Quinshon Judkins, but he is still not in camp. He has still missed a ton of time. He still has not signed his contract. He could still be disciplined by the NFL, right? Just because the charges have been dropped doesn't mean the NFL won't slap their own punishment on Judkins. That's a common practice for them, especially when it comes to domestic violence cases. And now on top of that, the Browns are rumored to be scouring the trade market for depth running backs. Quinshon Judkins, to me, for as excited as I was about him when I really dug in, I did a video on Quinshon Judkins earlier this offseason about how I really like his opportunity as one of the rookie running backs to take over sooner than later with a decent ADP. You didn't have to break the bank to get Quinshon Judkins. Now I think he's about as off my board as he possibly can be. Every day that goes by is another day that he hasn't signed his contract and that he's not in camp practicing. And now we have the Browns as a team that is on the rumor mill or in the rumor mill of potentially scouring the trade market for running back depth. The fact that the charges were dropped against Quinshon Judkins, it looked like we were turning a corner and things were looking up as far as his availability for the 2025 season. But it's been, when did that news break? At least a week ago? Still no contract, still no camp practices, still no reps with the team. And forget the first team. He's not getting any reps with the second or the third team or the scout team for that matter. He's not getting any reps with anybody. Still not in camp, could still receive discipline from the NFL, and the Browns are looking at in the trade market for running backs. I would not draft Quinshon Judkins. If you want to take a shot at a super depreciated cost, what's his ADP now these days? I think it's well south of 100. If you want to take a shot in the 12th round, go for it, I guess. But be prepared to wait until week 7 before you can even conceivably use him. And then who knows? What type of, what does that look like? What rotation does that look like? What if the Browns trade for somebody between now and then? Which they absolutely could. We could be looking at a 6-game suspension, theoretically still, or at least a 4-game suspension from the NFL. And now you're talking about, okay, I might have this rookie running back, maybe week 5, maybe week 6, maybe week 7. He missed all of training camp. He missed the most valuable practice time, the time where game plans and offensive like scheme, like, you know, the scheme is already established, but like the game plan and what people like, what the team wants to do in certain situations in certain games with the personnel that they had available to them in practice, they've already schemed all of this stuff up. Judkins has missed a lot of valuable time, and it's magnified even more because he's a rookie. The rookies need this time more than anything else. Even the guys with the high draft capital and their highly touted prospects, they still need this time with their, you know, with their teammates, with the offense, reps, cadence, timing. All of this stuff matters. He's missed all of that. Still is theoretically going to get suspended by the league. Could end up on the NFI. Doesn't have the contract yet. If you want to take a shot on Jerome Ford, I would do that, especially for week 1. If you go 0 RB in your draft and you're looking for like a dart throw at the end of, you know, the 11th, 12th round, the Cleveland Browns play the Cincinnati Bengals week 1. The Cincinnati Bengals are already looking like, as a holdover from last year, a defense that you want to target every single week in fantasy football. Jerome Ford might be like a flex plug and play for week 1 at this point. But I was not in on Judkins at this point anyway. It's like everything we get is another confirmation where it's like, yup, I don't want him. Browns are scouring the trade market for running backs, according to sources. Let's see what else we got. Travis Hunter not practicing, something to monitor, but, you know, not super worried about it yet. Jordan Love is good to go for week 1. He had a left thumb injury, so at least it wasn't on his throwing hand. You prefer these guys obviously being 100% healthy, but it sounds like he's going to be okay. He's not going to miss any time. Matthew Stafford practicing yet again, so the vibes continue to be good. The vibes continue to be solid as Stafford makes his return to practice for the 3rd straight day. 4th straight day? As Stafford practiced 4 straight days. We feel better about the Rams offense now. We could breathe a sigh of relief. I was raising some alarms last week because he was supposed to practice last week but didn't. But he returned to practice this week. Obviously something we want to keep monitoring. He is a 37, 38-year-old quarterback with back issues. But it's good to see that he has been practicing all of this week with another 2 weeks to go. Now that's the type of guy where I'm not worried about the fact that he hasn't practiced up to this point. Stafford isn't a rookie. He doesn't need to prove anything to anybody. I know that he can roll out of bed and read a defense. As long as Stafford is out there with a couple of weeks ahead of, you know, to get his reps and get his timing down with Devontae Adams, his new wide receiver, and Puka, who he missed a lot of time last year. I think that's enough time for a veteran quarterback like Stafford. My concerns are alleviated. I'm not as worried about the Rams as I was this time last week. And this is the final piece of news and notes for today, and then I will take some questions in the chat or some comments in the chat, and then I will kick off the mock draft. Glad to see we got a few folks in here. Thank you guys for popping in. Anybody, there's looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 spots left. First come, first serve with a valid sleeper ID. This is free to join. The invite is shared, posted, pinned at the top of the chat. Feel free to join. Feel free to take your spot, and I will kick it off following questions in the chat. Last thing here to just add more gas, add more fuel to the Flames, fan the Flames. We've seen some positive things about Christian McCaffrey this offseason and his return to form. His fullback, Kyle Juszczyk, posted a video of a highlight play that he made in practice a couple of weeks ago. Now left tackle Trent Williams just a couple of hours ago said that he looks fantastic. That was the quote. Christian looks fantastic. He looks like offensive player of the year, Christian, unquote. I am understanding of those who they have reservations to take Christian McCaffrey. If you guys listen to the Fantasy Footballers, the Footballers podcast, you probably heard them say at some point that you're either all the way in with a player like Christian McCaffrey or you're all the way out. There's no teetering. There's no in between. If he's on the clock, you either know if you want him or if you don't. I'm in the camp where I'm willing to take him. We are in the business of swinging for upside, swinging for the fences, and hitting home runs. You don't want to hit a single. You don't want to hit a base hit with your first round pick. You want to hit a home run or strike out trying. That's my MO. That's always my advice. Go for the home run. Don't hit the single. Don't play it safe in the first round of your draft. That's how you make the playoffs, but don't win the championship. Swing for the fences. Christian McCaffrey is a home run pick. That's seventh pick, eighth pick, ninth pick overall. That's the range where you can get him in most drafts. You may need to reach down to, with the fifth or sixth pick if you really want to be ballsy, especially in a league that prioritizes running back and drafts them quickly and drafts them at a premium. I am perfectly fine endorsing I know after everything that went down last year, it's hard to stomach for some people, but I am endorsing drafting Christian McCaffrey as high as, in full PPR leagues. Yeah, as probably as high as fifth or sixth overall. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs. I get it. Those five, they maybe feel a little bit safer. Totally fine. After that, I might go McCaffrey. And the vibes continue to improve with him. That's what it feels like anyway. And the quotes keep coming. The positive quotes, the positive reactions about Christian McCaffrey, they keep happening. If you've got that 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th pick in your draft, I would tell you to take him. Okay. I got to a couple of things at the top of the chat a little earlier. I am going to now respond to a couple of other comments and questions, and then I will kick off the mock draft. Whether you have been here before, welcome back. Whether you are here for the first time, welcome in. Just so you are all aware, with the season just a couple of weeks away, I have memberships available on this channel. You can find those details in the first link of the description of this live stream and all streams and videos on the channel. One of the perks is getting your questions and comments responded to out of order, out of turn. It's a priority. I prioritize comments and questions from members. So with that said, Jake will get the first response that I have here, and then I will get to everybody else. But what's going on, Jake? Well, that's spectacular. I'm really glad to hear that we won, or that you won. Let's go get another one. Let's go back-to-back this year. Bijan is your 101. In half PPR scoring, that's totally fair. In full PPR, I would go Jamar Chase. But Robinson has the fewest warts of any running back, so it makes sense to spend a first pick, second pick on him, and he shouldn't fall farther than that. Let's see. I got the question about Odunze versus Egbuka, and I think I see another question here about Odunze and Egbuka. I'll timestamp the spot, but I did briefly mention it. I might lean Egbuka slightly over Odunze, but that's the 50-50 tipping point. That's the spot where Egbuka is deserving of going. One of the other questions was about, do you take him over Olave? Do you take him over Jacoby Myers? The answer is yes. I would probably slightly lean Egbuka at this point over Rome Odunze, but that's that cutoff where I'm okay taking either player. If you prefer, if you're on the clock in the 5th round and you take Odunze with Egbuka on the board, that's fine. If you take Egbuka with Odunze on the board, that's probably what I would slightly lean personally. Also, fine. I don't have a strong preference between the two. I would maybe lean Egbuka just because I think he's going to have a greater chance to dominate targets to start the season than Odunze. Because of the depth of weapons that the Bears have and the lack of weapons that the Bucks currently have because of Godwin and Jalen McMillan's injuries that will keep them sidelined for at least the start of the season. And for McMillan, it's going to be the midway point of the season. I do remember this question from Tuesday. So I would prefer, I guess, to take. I guess I would prefer to take Henry, just because Henry is the guy with the higher draft capital. Yes, he costs a first round pick anyway. I just don't want to spend. I get those who take, they want to take the top quarterback in the third round of a one quarterback draft. I understand the appeal that Josh Allen brings to the table. I just don't want to give up the right to draft a running back or a wide receiver that is going in that same range. Like a Kyron Williams, a Chase Brown, and a Marion Hampton, Bucky Irving. Those are the running backs going around Josh Allen. I want those guys. The wide receivers that are going around Josh Allen are, I guess, Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins, Marvin Harrison, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Ideally, I get one of those guys as my wide receiver too, but if I start my draft running back, and I feel like I'm falling behind a little bit at wide receiver, I'm going to want to grab a wide receiver before I grab Josh Allen. So I would probably just lean Henry, but ultimately overall, I would want to know if you have other guys on your roster that are keeper eligible, keeper worthy, and offer a little bit more value to you than those two guys, because you can get Henry with the 10th overall pick just by drafting him. Like, is there anybody else on your roster that is keeper eligible and keeper worthy for a fraction of the cost of these guys? That's what I would want to know. Got this. If you're interested, you may have to rewind a little bit. Again, I'll timestamp this live stream after we're done or after I wrap. My slight preference is Egbuka. And yeah, you should be able to move around. If you already selected a spot in this draft, you should be able to move your pick. You should be able to just like click the claim button and you can move your spot around. We got 9 folks in here. That's awesome. I will kick this off here shortly. 3 spots left for anybody else who is interested in joining. Just a mock draft, half PPR, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, flex, kicker, defense. So 1 quarterback, 2 backs, 3 wide receivers, tight end, flex, kicker, defense. Pretty standard. We'll kick this thing off shortly. The answer to this question is yes. In one quarterback leagues, Drake May is an excellent target in my opinion. He did pretty well last year with a bad supporting cast. He looked good. He passed the eye test. Now his supporting cast is better. His offensive line is better. His with the drafting of Will Campbell, 4th overall, his skill position guys are better. They added Stephon Diggs in free agency. They drafted Travion Henderson in the 2nd round. He looks like he's going to be a super explosive playmaker at the running back position. They still have decent depth guys in Demario Douglas, Hunter Henry. These guys are now down the pecking order a little bit. They help fill out the depth of the Patriots offense a little bit better, as opposed to having to be the main focal points of the offense like they were last year. I quite like sitting and waiting at quarterback this year in one quarterback leagues, which is pretty common. I mean, a lot of folks are doing that. They adopt the late round quarterback strategy. I try to take it a step further and be the absolute last person in my draft to draft a quarterback, especially in the shallow leagues where I know like running backs and wide receivers are going to get prioritized. I'm happy to be the last person in the league to draft both a quarterback and tight end. I will punt both. If it makes sense to get one of the high rollers, one of the heavy hitters, they fall a little bit farther than I would have expected, and I'm happy with their cost, where they are now going, and I'm not crazy about the running backs and wide receivers that are available around that same range, then sure, I'll take one of the elite signal callers or one of the elite pass-catching options at tight end. but I'm not going to go out of my way to do it. I'm going to let it come to me. And if it doesn't happen, if other people in my draft take those guys closer to cost or above cost, I'll just wait. I'll punt. I will get a random dart throw at quarterback like a Drake May. I will get a random dart throw at tight end. Closer to the end of draft in shallow leagues, Tyler Warren comes to mind. David Njoku comes to mind. Tucker Kraft comes to mind. Trying to think the other dart. Zach Ertz comes to mind. Like, these are all guys that are perfectly competent starting options at tight end. If you want to go up a little bit higher than that, if you want to tier up a little bit more at tight end, I mean, Mark Andrews has a good chance to get off to a strong start this year because of the injury to Isaiah Likely. There's lots of good depth tight end spots. There's lots of good depth quarterback options. Hammer running back, hammer wide receiver early in general. Obviously, let value come to you if it happens to do so. Don't shy away from good value if it comes in the form of, an elite quarterback in the 5th or 6th round. Maybe it's not likely, but it's possible. Same deal with the tight end. Let the value come to you. And if it doesn't make it to you, then you just wait. I would do the same thing with both quarterbacks and tight ends. Of these quarterbacks, I would go May first. And that's somebody who I was bullish on Caleb Williams last year, but I feel like May did a little better than Caleb, given the circumstances that both had. Neither had a great, competent coaching staff. Neither had a good offensive line. Caleb had some better weapons to throw the football to and put up some decent numbers. 20 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. I think May had a little bit worse of a touchdown to interception ratio, but his skill position guys were a lot worse than Caleb's last year. They are better. Their offensive line is better. We're expecting improvements from both coaching staffs. I do think May is a little bit more of a threat to run. I think he ran more than Caleb last year. I would go May first. I would go Fields second, but that's with a caveat that I don't think Fields will get benched because the option behind Justin Fields for the Jets is Tyrod Taylor, who is a nice backup quarterback, but I think he's 36 years old at this point, and he's not the future of the team. The Jets might as well ride or die with Justin Fields this year, see what they have, and decide then if they need to reassess at quarterback for the 2026 draft, which they probably should do. Fields is not a very consistent thrower of the football. He's not a consistent passer, but he is a Konami code when it comes to running the football. That makes him an elite fantasy asset. It might be gross. Maybe if you draft Justin Fields, just don't watch Jets games. Just check the box score at the end, see what Fields did to compile some fantasy points for you, and you keep it moving to next week. Fields is an elite running quarterback, so that would make him second for me here. The passing consistency is a concern. And then I would probably go, Dak is more proven than Caleb. I hate that I have to put Williams fourth here, but I think I have to put Caleb Williams fourth here until he, we need to see the consistency with this Ben Johnson offense. I don't think I'm burying him. I'm not off drafting Caleb Williams. I'm perfectly fine drafting Caleb Williams, but I expect the Cowboys to struggle on defense and struggle running the football, which means Dak is going to have to air it out to CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens and Jake Ferguson. So Dak could come through with some crazy good passing volume, and we've seen him have an elite finish for fantasy at the quarterback position in the past with elite passing numbers and maybe not as much running the football. I don't think we can expect Dak to run the ball a ton at this stage of his career. We would expect Caleb to run more than Dak, so that gives Caleb the edge there. But Dak has proven to put up big passing seasons in the past, and now they add George Pickens to CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson, and they're probably not going to be able to run the ball. So I'll give Dak 3 and then Williams 4. So May, Fields, Dak, Caleb. but I think they're all solid targets in a one quarterback draft where you approach it with a late round quarterback strategy. I would go May, Fields, Dak, Caleb. And I don't want that to sound like an indictment on Caleb that I'm ranking him fourth, because I am okay with, and it might not feel great if you are out of options at quarterback in like a 12-team league. Maybe a couple of your league mates draft 2 quarterbacks before you draft your first. It's totally possible. It might feel icky, right? It might feel gross to click Caleb Williams. It doesn't. I get it. You click it and you're like, I don't know. I feel like he's going to be fine this year. I feel like he's going to be better than last year. Again, better coaching staff, better atmosphere, I think, in general around him. The onus is on him. The onus is on Caleb to perform. And for me, the difference between Dak and Caleb, we've seen Dak do it. We've seen Dak put up big numbers. Caleb obviously only in his second year. He did okay, not great last year. Let's see if he can improve. I'm happy to draft him as a final safety valve, like a fail safe. Caleb Williams is like that final fail safe before it's like you really start hitting the bottom of the barrel. I think he'll be fine. I would still rank him fourth of that group. Okay, I will answer more questions in the chat as we move through this mock draft. But we have, I think, 10 people in here now, 11 people in here now. There's one more open spot. The second spot is available if we want to fill this this mock with 12 fine people. But if we don't have anybody here in the next minute or so, I'll just go ahead and kick this thing off. I assume there's quite a few drafts happening either this weekend or next weekend. I will also be around next Tuesday and Thursday, same time, same place, 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm happy to host more mock drafts. If you're molding your strategy, I'm happy to talk shop on any one specific player. Feel free to check out any of the videos on my channel. I've talked about decent amount of players this offseason, so you can get some specific thoughts about those guys. If I haven't talked about a specific player that you want to hear about, obviously just let me know. Yeah, we can shorten the time per pick. That's fine with me. My thoughts on JJ McCarthy are I would probably would I put him behind Caleb Williams? I would put him behind Caleb Williams just because we haven't let me caveat. I like JJ McCarthy. I'll do a minute. How about that? I'll do 60 seconds per pick. I think everybody here is for a mock draft. I can't imagine there's going to be too much uproar about me changing that. I like JJ McCarthy. Great weapons, great offensive coaching staff, great mind and quarterback guru at head coach and Kevin O'Connell. You've got Justin Jefferson. You've got, when he comes back from suspension, Jordan Addison. I still like Aaron Jones. Jordan Mason was a priority add for them. They've got decent playmakers around the offense. They've got TJ Hawkinson, an upper echelon tight end. They've got a good offensive line. The pieces are there for McCarthy to succeed. Now he's just got to go do it. We just haven't seen him yet on an NFL field outside of a couple of preseason games. I like McCarthy. I would feel better about McCarthy as my QB2 in a super flex league over him as my primary option in a one quarterback league, but he will be serviceable. He will be streamable. He might end up being in one quarterback leagues like a waiver wire ad early on, and then he's just your guy throughout the course of the season. He could be that. I would probably rank him in the QB 16, 17 range for the season with room to grow, like upside, room to grow, room to crack closer to that top 12. The pieces are in place for McCarthy for sure. Yeah, I'm very excited about McCarthy. I acquired him this offseason in a dynasty league. I gave up the right to compete this year. I looked at my team. It was an older team. The depth had dried up. I was like, I had a good run. I like 3-4 years making the playoffs. I was like, this team has hit its end. So I traded Josh Jacobs for JJ McCarthy in a dynasty league. It's a super flex league. Guy I acquired him from is contending. Took Jacobs. I took McCarthy. I gave up the right to contend and compete this year to add JJ McCarthy in Dynasty, if that gives you any extra inkling into how I feel about him. All right. I'm going to kick this mock draft off. Thank you guys for your patience and for hanging out as I talk through news and notes and general questions. I will continue to take questions through in the chat through the draft. I might be delayed answering them as we navigate through this thing, and then stick around after when we're done, and I will talk about your team. I will evaluate your team. So we will have one computer from the 2 spot. That's perfectly fine. Let's get it going. This is half PPR, 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 1 quarterback, 1 tight end, 1 flex, kicker, defense. I have not taken the 5 spot just yet. I am quite happy to actually end up here because I'm going to get somebody that I'm very happy to end up with. Probably one of these 2 running backs here. Justin Jefferson is also in play. He's perfectly safe, perfectly fine to take here. I would imagine in half PPR scoring, which is what this draft is, running backs are going to be a little bit more prioritized in your league. Maybe that's not everybody, but that's the general consensus. We may have an auto draft here coming up, which is, I did take a little bit of time before I kicked this thing off. So that's okay. Maybe we'll get them back over the course of the draft. This could be an auto into Bijan Robinson.
Let's go, team! Let's go!
Gibbs. Obviously that was an auto pick, so I'm not 100% sure if that was that by design or not. This should never happen. I don't want to say this should never happen, but I think Bijan Robinson is a top 2 or 3 pick. Maybe not in full PPR if you want to hammer wide receivers. And if you want to take Gibbs over him, that's perfectly fine. But to get Bijan here at the 5th spot does feel like a gift. I'm quite happy with that result. And I'm not going to waste any more of y'all's time. I'm just going to take him. Another thing that you guys want to keep in mind, when you're on the clock, take all the time that you can with your pick and look down the board. Like literally manually count the number of picks until your next pick. So, I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There's 14 picks before I make my next pick. Like, who's going to be available at that spot? Sleeper does a nice job of giving like this projected, this like blue line of who you expect to have available to you. This is going to come in handy, maybe not at the top of the draft, but in the guts of the draft, in the middle of the draft. Take a look down the board. Who do you project is going to be available to you at your next pick? That might help you make your decision with your current pick, what you want to do. If you like the wide receiver depth available to you at your next pick, maybe take a running back here. Vice versa. If you like a couple of quarterbacks or a tight end further down the draft, hammer wide receiver, hammer running back. Don't get big, googly-eyed at the tight ends and stud quarterbacks that are still available at the top of the draft. If you think that you can get a good depth option at a fraction of the cost later, keep in mind where you are, your spot in the draft, the players that are projected to be around your next pick, and allow that to influence your current pick. McCaffrey at the 108. I like that a lot. Amon-Ra, Neighbors, Genti, Puka. Puka falling to the 112 now that we know that Matthew Stafford is practicing. That feels pretty good. Look, we just drafted 12 studs, right? They're all studs. They're all awesome. Obviously, there's some order that we can all kind of agree they sort of belong in, but at the end of the day, we're all expecting big things from all of these guys. It's a matter of personal preference. Would I suggest double tapping quarterbacks at the end of a 1 quarterback draft? If you have punted some more, on quarterback, and it's the 10th, 11th, 12th round, 11th, 12th, 13th round, and you haven't taken a quarterback yet, yeah, take two. Take two. Take a name that you like and take a guy that you're like, I could see myself starting this dude week 1 or week 2, and I'll make a call after maybe a couple of weeks. Maybe one of these two names will emerge, reveal themselves to me as the guy where it's like, I need to make this one my constant. But for the first couple of weeks of the season, that might not be obvious. You could play the matchups a little bit and get a couple of cheap guys. I am totally fine with that. If you want to grab like a, I don't know, like any one of those two, like a Drake May and a Caleb Williams, Justin Fields and a Dak Prescott, Fields and Williams, May and Dak, any one of those combinations, May and McCarthy, Williams and McCarthy, Fields and McCarthy, like any combination of those guys. You could throw Trevor Lawrence in there. I know Lawrence has been a little disappointing relative to expectations, but now he's got like some really intriguing pieces to play with on offense. Brian Thomas, Travis Hunter, Brenton Strange is an intriguing sleeper at tight end. We've added some backfield competition in the form of Bishal Tootin to a pass-catching back in Travis Etienne. And Liam Cohn comes over from Tampa Bay. How could I forget? They had a really successful season on offense last year. We hope that he can carry over his scheme seamlessly and successfully to Jacksonville's offense. So any one of these depth quarterbacks, grab two of them at the end of the draft. That's totally fine. Lawrence and May, Lawrence and Williams, May and Williams, May and Dak, Dak and Fields, Fields and Lawrence, Fields and McCarthy, May and McCarthy. Any combination of those guys, I'm totally fine with. Totally fine with. Yeah, and it's totally if you know if you have the third pick and you know Bijan's not going to be there, then sure. Just even if he's on the board in a mock draft, skip over him. Skip over him and see what it looks like after you make a pick that you know is more likely to happen when the real thing comes around. Okay. There are quite a few names that I like here. I took running back. So again, I'm going to play the game. My third pick, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 8 picks till my next pick. So that's right around here. There's some decent wide receiver names and running back names, to be honest, that I quite like here. So since it's half PPR, I don't always go running back. I'm going to see what this build looks like when I do go running back. I'm quite bullish on Chase Brown, lined up for a bell cow workload in a highly explosive offense with a terrible defense in Cincinnati. I'm going to go ahead and grab Chase Brown here, and I'm going to see what these wide receivers look like in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round and see how I like this build for myself. But I'm going to take a stud anchor, guy that I have ranked as a clear-cut RB1 in Chase Brown that I can get in the back half of the 2nd round. I'd like to see how this looks. I think I have Chase as my RB9, so I get him as my RB10. I'm okay with that. Yeah, and get Nico at the 205. That is a surprising drop. I like Drake London and Brian Thomas quite a bit, but I would take Nico over both of those guys. And I would take him over Taylor and Achane. Achane because of the calf injury that he's currently dealing with. I'll tell you what, Brock Bowers fall into the 302 also feels like a pretty that's a pretty nice value for Brock Bowers. A lot of running backs off the board early, no surprise. Hampton early 3rd round, no surprise. That being said, I'm happy with how this board fell to me a little bit. I could have taken Brock Bowers and had that deep positional advantage at tight end, but I opted for another running back. Just because the bell cow guys, the projected bell cows are so few and far between, and I think Chase Brown is going to be that for Cincinnati. Speaking of Cincinnati, there is a wide receiver that I like here. I'd be happy to take him a couple picks higher than this. Again, I want to bank on good offenses with good quarterbacks and potentially going to be involved in a lot of shootouts over the course of the year because their defense is bad. The Bengals check all those boxes, and I'm going to take T. Higgins. Wide receiver 1 projection, even though he's his team's wide receiver 2. He got the contract. He's attached to Joe Burrow. I'm going to take T. Do you trade Hampton and Egbuka for Brian Thomas? That feels like I love Brian Thomas. That feels like a little much right now. I don't think I would do that. Hampton's stock is through the roof because Najee Harris's availability continues to be a huge question mark. We have no idea what his status is for week 1, week 2, week 6. When is Najee going to come back? I have no idea. And then same for Egbuka. His stock is way up. Chris Godwin's going to probably not play until October. And then what does that even look like? What version of Chris Godwin are we getting? Jalen McMillan suffered a neck injury. I don't recall if it was practice or the preseason game. He's going to be out until week 8 or 9. They need Egbuka. Brian Thomas is probably the best player of this group, right? He had a sensational rookie season last year. We're expecting a year 2 leap. But Hampton and Egbuka feels like collectively a better combination. You're getting a guy who's now projected to be his team's RB1 maybe all season long. We don't know how long, again, it's going to take for Najee to get on the practice field or overcome his eye injury. He's been doing some drills here and there. That's been the latest update that I saw. He has upgraded to drills, but I mean, dude, we're 2 weeks from the season. Like everybody else was doing drills like 3 weeks ago, a month ago. And they don't have this eye injury. So, I mean, but Hampton's stock is way up, and so is Egbuka's. I think it's a solid offer, but I actually might take the package here. Yeah, Nico falling to the 205 that's a pretty good value for Nico. Would I take Achane first round in full PPR? Not if my draft was this weekend. Not if my draft was this weekend. Second round, sure. This has created this soft tissue calf injury that he's dealing with has put a serious dent in my enthusiasm for Devon Achane. It's not like he has a month to get right and rest. We also don't know the severity of this injury, but it was enough to rule him out for practice all this week, back on Monday. Next week will be critical, especially if your draft isn't this weekend. Hopefully it's not. But if it is, I don't think I could take Devon Achane in the first round, even in full PPR. I don't know if he's going to play week 1. I hope he does. I would like to be optimistic that he will, but we don't know how serious this is. And we're only, 2 weeks away, 2.5 weeks from the game. And he was already ruled out of practice all this week. Achane is awesome. He was my RB4 before this calf injury. I think now I put him more like the RB7. I would draft Genty over him. I know Derrick Henry is a tougher sell in full PPR leagues, but I would take probably Derrick Henry over Devon Achane. And I don't blame anybody at this point. Again, if your draft is this weekend, if you move other guys up over Devon Achane, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor. I mean, these guys have, at least today, right now, they have one fewer concern than Devon Achane does. They don't have this soft tissue injury. Achane has it. I would have taken him in the first round 10 days ago or a week ago prior to the news breaking. I think it happened on Sunday, right? This time last Saturday, yeah, I would have said he's a first-round pick. Now, mid to late second, I still want to believe but this is not a good time to come up with a soft tissue injury and miss a whole week of practice. If we get good news on Devon Achane, he returns to practice next week, he's full go, and your draft is next week, yeah, draft Achane in the first round. But if we don't get positive news before your draft, I can't take him there. Yeah. T hobbled his ankle, but he returned, he got back in there. He was back in 11-11. So he's good. I saw the note. Higgins got injured today. He returned to practice like same day. So I'm like, phew, we're okay. We're all right. I think I'm coming up in a couple of picks. Oh, I'm on the clock right now. Ooh, I think I know what I'm going to do here. Well, damn it. The smart thing for me to do would be to stack Higgins and Brown with Joe Burrow. What I want to do is take George Kittle. The smart thing to do would be to take Joe Burrow, even though I want to take George Kittle. I'm going to take Joe Burrow and stack up my Bengals and see what this looks like. I'm only taking Burrow here because I have two Bengals. I have T. Higgins and I have Chase Brown. If I didn't have both of those guys, I would not take Burrow there. But we're going to see what this build looks like after the fact. Burrow's a tough sell here because he's elite. He's an elite quarterback. He doesn't give you the rushing upside that these other quarterbacks in this range do. You're banking on a 4,500-yard minimum season, like 4,500-yard, 35 touchdown season for Burrow to warrant being drafted this high. So it's a gamble, but he's elite. He's a great quarterback. He's got elite weapons to throw the football to, and they're going to need passing volume this year because that Bengals defense is probably going to be not bad. They might be like atrocious. They were bad last year with Trey Hendrickson, who led the league in sacks. If they don't have him, they're cooked. Okay, I need a wide receiver too. I really wanted to take Kittle, but I opted for stacks. I opted to build my Bengals stack. This feels like a good spot to buy the dip on Terry McLaurin. I don't want Terry McLaurin this year. That's the thing, though. I worry about Terry McLaurin. I worry about this contract situation being an off-field distraction, and I worry about touchdown regression because he hadn't caught that many touchdowns in a season before last year. So I worry about that regression. I'm going to take another roll of the dice. How about this? How about them apples? How about Rashee Rice in the 5th round? I don't know that I advocate for that either. I am, full disclosure, I am doing some things that I don't know I would definitively do in a real draft, but that is why we mock, right? We get an opportunity to look at a build, look at a structure before the real thing and determine if we like it or not. If you look at a team after a mock draft and you tell yourself, I hate it, I think that's good. That's good. That's a good exercise. It's a good use of your time. It's a reminder, or the light bulb might go on like, okay, I built that team that way and I absolutely hate the way it looks. I'm not going to do that when the real thing comes. Am I trying to stay away from the Dolphins offense in general? They do feel like they could be a bit of a ticking time bomb. like the vibes don't feel great in Miami. You know, what is Tyreek's relationship with Tua after Tyreek made the comments at the end of the season last year that he wants out? And then Tua made a comment earlier in camp that, like, you don't just, I'm paraphrasing. I don't mean to put words into his mouth. I'm paraphrasing, but he essentially said, like, oh, well, we don't just like brush that over. We don't just pass that over. You got to kind of earn it. You got to earn it back with the team, as like saying to Tyreek, like, we're not just like automatically cool just because you're here. Again, paraphrasing, taking it with the context that I have the quote. I mean, there's that. Obviously, there's Tua's health. There's Tyreek's health. Tyreek wasn't 100% healthy last year. Now there's Devon Achane's health. They traded Jonnu Smith, who was a big part of their offense last year, but he wanted a contract extension and they weren't willing to give it to him. Let me slide the draft down so everybody can see what's happening here. I didn't realize Xavier Worthy was still on the board. I might have considered taking Rice Worthy over Rice had I realized that, because I think Worthy's going to play the whole season. Rice maybe won't. But for those first 4 games that he's going to play this year, I expect him to ball. So I guess I'm banking. The thought process with taking Rashee Rice in the 5th round is I'm going to get a guy who I can lean on as a wide receiver 2 for the first 4 weeks, hopefully get off to a strong start, and then I'll figure it out from there. Ultimately, I do think I will pass on Rice when it comes time for the real thing, because I just can't bear to stomach a potential 6-game suspension from weeks 6 to 12 or weeks 6 to 13 because their bye week is in there. So it's actually like a 7-week absence and not a 6-week absence. But I'm curious to see how I feel about it and what it looks like after the fact. So, I'm a little worried about the Dolphins. I feel like it could go south quickly. Their defense might be bad. Their whole secondary is different from last year due to injuries and trades. I do feel like Miami is one of those ticking time bombs where if we had to make a short list of teams where we think it could go wrong for them this year, sorry to any Dolphins fans, but I would put the Dolphins on that list. Their ceiling is that they're a fun offense. That Tyreek is still elite. Jalen Waddle is still elite. Tua is good enough to get the job done and support multiple relevant fantasy players. Devon Achane is healthy and overcomes the calf injury, and he's a top 5 fantasy running back that we all expect. That would be awesome. Darren Waller comes out of his, rap career retirement and is the tight end 11 on the season. We would all find joy in this in one way, shape, or form. I think there's a lot of potential for downside in that offense. Yeah, Buka went high. I will never fault anybody for going and getting their guy. If you believe in a guy, go get him. I could draft him in the 4th round. The 5th round. I could draft Buka in the 5th round today, right now. No problem. Wouldn't think twice about it. I don't think I could take him over Garrett Wilson and DK Metcalf and Cortland Sutton, some of the wide receivers that went just after Buka. Honestly, Devontae Adams in the 5th round, I think that's a pretty good value. There's a guy here that I am holding out hope for. And we will see if I get him. Yeah, Lamar, the quarterbacks fell in this draft, and that's okay. That's okay. People prioritizing running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. That's normal. That's standard. For a lot of folks, that's their process in 1 quarterback leagues. Now, the flip side is if you invest high in a quarterback, you're going to get a difference maker at a little bit of reduced cost. So yeah, Lamar in the 4th round is good. Daniels in the 4th round is solid. In a vacuum, I would take Jalen Hurts over Joe Burrow, but again, I have Bengals stacks, and so I wanted to complete it with the quarterback. But in a vacuum, I would take Jalen Hurts over Joe Burrow. All right. What are we doing here, Sean? Is this an auto pick?
Come on.
Well, I still get my guy. I think. Just looking down the board. I'm up in 8 picks. There are some interesting names here that I do like. But I'm going to take a guy that I've been bullish on all offseason, a guy that I listed as one of my targets. I did a live stream a couple of weeks ago about targets and sleepers. That is a cut-up timestamped live stream. If you missed it and you would like to check it out, guys that I am targeting and sleepers. Hopefully it's not too dated since then due to injuries and whatever have you, but I don't think so. One of these guys I still feel very strongly about. I am taking Jameson Williams here. I think he's about to take yet another leap. I don't think we've seen the full potential yet. I am very happy to get JMO in the 6th round as my wide receiver 3. Jerry Jeudy is a nice pick right after that. He's probably going to put up some big numbers for as long as Joe Flacco is the Browns quarterback. Yep. I'm good with this plan. You can't take Achane in the first round anymore. So I'm good with taking Henry, especially if it's half PPR or standard scoring. I don't know if it's full PPR. But yeah, if Henry is there, if Genty is there, you can take Ashton Genty. If Henry goes, if Henry and Genty go and McCaffrey happens to still be on the board, you could take him. I, on the other hand, am going to right now. There's some wide receivers that I like down here. Some interesting running back depth. I'm not taking Judkins. I'm not taking Caleb Johnson. I do think I would take Mark Andrews at tight end over Travis Kelce and Sam Laporta. I might take him. I could take Tyrone Tracy, who I think will be the week 1 starter. I don't know if he'll stay the starter for the Giants. And with Caleb Johnson on the board still, I don't know that I want to take Jaylen Warren yet. And I'm going to take Mark Andrews. There are some tight ends that I like a little bit later in the draft, but Andrews has a chance to get off to a really strong start. Isaiah likely has an injury that might hold him out the first couple of weeks of the season. So Andrews has a chance to get off to a really good start as the primary, guy soaking up targets, snaps, targets, and catches at tight end for Baltimore. So I'll take a shot on Andrews there. Let's see how this looks. So I went against what I had suggested earlier. I want to see what this team looks like when I invest heavily in both quarterback and tight end. That's to say, I took 2 of them within the first 80 picks of the draft. I don't necessarily always advocate for that, but I want to look at what that team looks like and definitively decide whether I want to approach like a strategy like that or not. My early thought is no, but I wanted to build it all the same so that I could visualize it as my own team and, reaffirm what I told you guys earlier, or, tell you to be nimble in the event that those opportunities present themselves to you in the draft. It's a combination of both. Prioritize running back and wide receiver, but don't say no to value or making roster moves that make sense. And obviously, makes sense can come in all shapes and sizes. But yeah, Henry and a receiver is good. McCaffrey and a receiver, if he makes it to the 10th pick, he probably won't, but he might, depending on your league's feelings on him. Genty and a receiver. You could go Brian Thomas. You could go Nico Collins. You could go Drake London. If it's Nico Collins, I would probably go Nico Collins, but any one of those 3 guys, like at the 1-2 turn, is perfectly fine. In the unlikely event, but possible event that one of those wide receivers happens to be Malik Neighbors or Amon-Ra St. Brown or Puka Nacua, you could obviously pair a running back with one of those 2 guys as well. Sorry, let me slide this down so that everybody can see. I will talk about every team. I will talk about every build after this draft wraps up. So feel free to stick around. I don't intend to hurt anybody's feelings if I don't like a selection, but again, that's what this is for. This is an exercise to get ready for the real thing. So, maybe you intentionally maybe right now you're intentionally building a team that you yourself aren't even crazy about, but you still want to look at it. You still want to visualize it to either rule out that you want to do that or maybe give yourself something extra to think about. Regardless, whatever your strategy is right now, I will give my thoughts post-draft on each team. So feel free to stick around after the fact if you'd like to hear those thoughts. Yeah, I like the Kittle. I almost took Kittle in the 4th round. I would have if I didn't build those Bengals stacks. Yeah, this is 3 receivers, 1 flex. And there's the tight end spot. So if I draft Kittle, I'm not drafting another tight end. If I draft Brock Bowers, if I draft Trey McBride, honestly, with where I drafted Andrews, I'm probably not going to draft another tight end either. I don't want to play that game of like, well, I'll draft a tight end too for some insurance. I'm not worried about insurance for the onesie positions for quarterback and wide receiver, unless I punt the position. If I end up with a premium player at the position, that's my guy. Like I drafted Joe Burrow in the 4th round. I'm not drafting another quarterback. I drafted Mark Andrews in the 7th round. Even if I like a value at tight end later on, if a guy falls and I'm like, man, that's like, he should be off the board already. He should be gone. I'm going to resist the urge to add him because he doesn't do anything for me. I don't want to start 2 tight ends. I don't want to put a tight end in the flex. I want to put a running back or a wide receiver in the flex. Take 2 quarterbacks or 2 tight ends if you don't invest in them until the 10th, 11th, 12th round. Otherwise, stick with 1 per team or 1 per roster spot.
Let's go! Let's go!
All right, so there goes Jordan Mason. I was wondering if Ricky Pearsall was still on the board because I think his ADP is extremely depreciated on Sleeper for reasons I don't understand. But he's gone, so I can't take him. Let's see. We're at the point now where we've got a lot of quarterbacks and tight ends at the top of like the projected ADP. Brian Robinson would feel like a good pick here, but he now feels volatile because I don't know what his role is and what team he'll be doing it on. So I'll take a share of Jaylen Warren. Caleb Johnson going in the 7th round. Now that like kind of, okay, like now I see like the tier break between Johnson and Warren. Now I feel a little bit more comfortable taking a shot on him as a veteran to maybe get get opportunities early in the season, maybe get off to a strong start. I do expect Caleb Johnson to take over more lead back opportunities in that backfield as the season progresses. But in the 8th or 9th round, Warren's a fine roll of the dice for a guy to maybe help you get off to a strong start. He could be in flex consideration, if the Steelers' backfield is like an even split, which I think we expect it to be to start the season. There are quite a few running backs whose ADP I like down here. I'm trying to see if there are any wide receivers that I feel the same about. Actually, it feels like the wide receiver depth, not the running back depth, is what has kind of blossomed here. I don't know if I don't recall if I called out Zach Charbonnet, as one of my sleepers in my Targets and Sleepers live stream. But he qualifies for that. I actually quite like him this year. I think I like him at cost a little bit more than I like Kenneth Walker. Walker's practice regimen this offseason has been sporadic. That doesn't mean he won't be available for more games than not this year, but Walker has had a little bit of an injury history. Charbonnet really hasn't. And I think this is going to be a team that runs the ball a lot. I think I'm going to take Charbonnet. Yeah, I'll take an RB4, a little extra running back depth. I'll figure out some dart throw wide receivers a little later. I'll take Charbonnet. Oh yeah, we talked about Kittle's the start the he doesn't have to be in the flex. Let's see. Yeah, I look at other sources. I listen to podcasts. The fantasy footballers have probably tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of listeners. So when I'm in the car or I'm going for a walk, I listen to their podcast. I read stuff like from JJ Zachariason. I like Graham Barfield with fantasy points. I think he's a sharp guy, sharp mind, good with analytics. I think Jeff Ratcliffe has a good show on Sirius XM. He's a good listen, and he's got solid rankings. I do. I look at other people in the industry and what they're doing, who they like. I sometimes agree with them. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes there are guys that they like where I'm like, I don't see the vision at all. Sometimes I'm in lockstep with them on certain players. Other times I'm not. But that's the thing. None of us are going to be in lockstep on everything, and that's okay. That's the beauty of it. That's what makes this game so great. We all have players that we believe in one way or another. Sometimes we have a valid reason to believe them, sometimes believe in them, and sometimes it is just like blind optimism for no reason whatsoever. And that's the fun in it. I do look at other sources. I read other sources. I try to look at data. I look at data. I try to understand data. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I know that for sure. But I look at the data and what's presented to me and, what guys did last year and what trends are common and consistent. We hear about sticky stats. I'm sure that's probably a comment or something that at least some of you have heard before, a phrase called sticky stats. And that is basically to say, what are some things that have happened over the course of time, over the course of a player's career that has been consistent, that we can lean on, that we believe will be there at the end of the day, year over year, no matter how a season goes. Targets is one of those things. You can't rely on something like touchdowns year over year. Touchdowns are random. They are not a sticky stat. Targets, for example, are a sticky stat. When you are a stud wide receiver one, and you know that player is going to get 120, 130, maybe 140, 50 targets per season, you know that by virtue of the volume that they have earned in their offense, they are going to get a lot of opportunities to produce. So looking at those types of data points at this time of the year, there's a lot of different things that you can look at. There's a lot of different great resources out there. Nobody has all the answers. Nobody has everything right. Nobody gets everything wrong. You take all of them, you pull them all together, and that's what helps to ultimately mold your plan of attack and your feelings on certain guys and strategies. And so that's what that's what I lean on. And then I've been playing fantasy football since 2004, which is crazy. My fantasy football career is old enough to drink, is old enough to order a beer at the bar. That's how long I've been playing fantasy. And that's not to say that I am, an expert just because I've played for 20 or 21 years. But, you've been around the block long enough. You see things, you pick up on things, history, trends, tendency, what your league mates like to do at the draft. I keep you try to keep a note or notes on each person in your draft. What do they do? What do they like to do? How does that affect me based on the draft order this year? There's a lot of different things that you can put into it. To help ultimately mold and shape what you want to do and what you think and what you believe. So appreciate the question. Okay, there goes Croskey-Merritt in the 10th round. There goes Bill. What do we want to do here? I see a big fade of mine is still on the board this year, Jauan Jennings. I haven't heard anybody else. I will say this. I haven't heard anybody else in the industry say that they are out on Jauan Jennings the way I'm out on Jauan Jennings. I'm not bullish on Jauan Jennings. I'm not drafting him anywhere. He had a 6th round ADP in Underdog Fantasy best ball draft over the course of the season. Now we see him dipping into the 10th round. I just haven't had a good vibe or a good feeling on him all season. He dominated for 3 games last year, and they were awesome wide receiver 1 performances. He had another wide receiver 2 performance, and then he had a bunch of wide receiver 4 performances. Debo's gone. Ayuk is hurt. I get that, but McCaffrey's back. Kittle's going to do his thing as a target hog. Pearsall is expected to take a step forward. Jennings had a lot of opportunities last year after Ayuk went down and Debo struggled all year and McCaffrey was hurt. There were opportunities abound. The consistency wasn't there. Now he's hurt. He, behind the scenes, wants a contract extension. He's not practicing. No thank you on Jauan Jennings. Let's see. I need either a wide receiver or a tight end. I'm going to take another depth running back that I believe in. I have been hammering Tank Bigsby all off season long as the value to, take a shot on in the Jags backfield. I think he's going to be their first and second down runner. Sure, it's possible Etienne is the more valuable piece on a per play basis if he's the third down back, but I think his grip on the starting job is very much in question right now. Bigsby seems to have earned the trust of the coaching staff. It's a new coaching staff, but he had a decent year last year, at least to start the first half of the year, running the football. He did well. I think he's going to get more opportunities to run the ball, be the team's primary runner on first and second down. I will take that 110, whatever picks we're at into this draft. And I might still get a wide receiver that I like. Dang, there's another running back that I... Okay. I am going to do something. So I'm going to caveat and say that I'm probably going not to advise doing this in the real draft. But I'm going to load up on yet again more running back depth and take an RB6. Again, I talked about how Brian Robinson seems to be... Sorry, let me put it on the round that we're drafting at so that you can see where we are. Brian Robinson is on his way out of Washington. Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt is the bee's knees right now in the 10th round. But you know whose ADP is unchanged but could see an uptick in usage, especially in half and full PPR scoring? Give me the boring old vet Austin Eckler for a little bit more running back depth. I think I've, in this particular instance, I've cornered the market on running backs a little bit. I think I have 6 of them now. Oh, God, that's a lot of running backs. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with rolling the dice on a lot of running back depth. That maximizes more flexibility for me for the early stretch of the season. You like Judkins in the 7th. Yeah, I can't do it. Again, you're not breaking the bank for the guy. But that is a time in the draft where, let's see, he was in the 8th round. Yeah, I mean, around here is I guess fine to take the shot. Jordan Mason is maybe the guy I would have preferred. I'm not up, am I? No. I just drafted. I just went. I thought that auto said Jauan Jennings, but then it changed to Najee Harris. Interesting. I guess that part of the draft is fine. There's a bunch of dart throws and unknowns. I'm just worried about Judkins being a factor this year now, given everything that's gone down. Still hasn't signed a contract. Has missed all of training camp, all practices, all preseason games. The NFL still probably will suspend him in some capacity because they have a history of doing that even when charges in a legal matter get dropped. The NFL, it's not uncommon for them to still exercise, handing down their own discipline. And then whatever happens after that, he's got to get up to speed. I mean, how long are we going to have to wait for Quinshon Judkins this year? Week 8, week 9? And then what does that look like? If you want to take the roll of the dice, if you want to take the shot, totally fine. On paper, he's the most talented player in that Browns backfield. So it makes sense that he would emerge and find his way at the top of the depth chart before long. But this has thrown a serious wrench into his season, everything that has gone down over the past few weeks. The charges being dropped is good news for his availability, but he's still not signed. Missed all of camp, missed critical time as a rookie. So I'm worried about him for this season. It's gravy. It's even better if you're in a keeper league, because then it's a little bit more palatable, right? Okay, I could keep this guy at a fraction of a cost. His cost is probably going to be a little bit more expensive next year when all of this stuff is behind him and he's a second-year player, and we're all good to go. Then you might get him at a reduced cost this year as opposed to next year in a keeper league. But even then he still has to produce enough this year for you to warrant feeling good enough to keep him. So there's a lot of red flags, and I don't know that I necessarily want to be the one to deal with them. I see there's a few more questions in the chat, but I got a question from Jake. Again, one of my members. One of the perks of being a member of the channel is priority responses to questions and comments. So I see everybody else's questions. I will get to them, but I got to get to my members first. Bowers is a mid-second round pick, absolutely. I don't think I would put all of my eggs in the Raiders basket. I would draft one of either Genty or Bowers. You also might not be in a position to get both of those guys anyway. But Bowers is absolutely a mid-second round pick in full PPR. The guy just had one of the most impressive rookie seasons at tight end that we've ever seen. He is going to be the focal point of that offense. They have better quarterback play. They will have better quarterback play this year in Geno Smith. He is better than Gardner Minshew. He is better than Aiden O'Connell. He's going to elevate. He's going to elevate Brock Bowers, and Brock Bowers doesn't need that much more elevating because he balled out last year with bad quarterback play. Bowers is absolutely worthy of a mid-second round pick. He probably should have gone a little bit higher in this mock draft. He didn't. If that plays out and you have a pick at the top of the third round or at the end of the second round in your draft, grab him. Grab him. Grab Brock Bowers. I have no issues with that. I have no problems with that. Yes, you're sacrificing potentially getting a stud running back or stud wide receiver, but if you're close, if you are at the late second, early third, you'll get one of those guys on the turn, on the back in the third round. You can get your stud anchor tight end at Brock Bowers, and he's worth it. I think he's worth it. Just don't draft another tight end if you take Bowers or McBride or Kittle. Just don't draft. If you draft a tight end in the first 4 or 5 rounds, honestly, in the first 7 or 8 rounds, that's your guy. That's your dude. Same thing with quarterback. You draft one of the top 4, 5, 6, 7 guys, that's your guy. Don't draft a QB2. Maximize your running back and wide receiver depth, especially since you sacrificed a high pick on either a quarterback or a tight end instead of getting a wide receiver or a running back. Make sure you max out your depth at those positions, not the onesie positions, not quarterback and tight end. But yes, Bowers is worth a mid-second round pick for sure. All right, I'm up. Wow. I almost took Rashid Shaheed in the 10th round, and then I took a bunch of depth running backs. So I'll just take Rashid Shaheed here. If it hasn't been said before, I love Rashid Shaheed. Rashid Shaheed's a baller. one of my favorite depth wide receivers in general. Maybe this is a little bit tunnel vision, just liking Rashid Shaheed, but I think he's a big time playmaker. I think he's closer to being the team's wide receiver one than maybe he's being drafted. Obviously, Chris Olave is talented, but I don't think Rashid Shaheed is too far off. And I wouldn't draft Olave 6 rounds or 5 rounds ahead of Rashid Shaheed. I think they're similar in value. I think history will prove that. And I'm happy to end up with Shaheed in the 12th round as a depth wide receiver. What other depth wide receiver would I be happy to end up with? Because I already have like 5 or 6 running backs. Keeping an eye out. All right, I'm not going this far down. I'll take Rashad Bateman here. Decent depth player. Just got a contract with the Baltimore Ravens. Is a starter for them. May benefit from Isaiah Likely's potential absence for the first couple of weeks of the season. Yes, I have Mark Andrews, but I'm not worried about the fact that I'm doubling up in this instance because, one, it's a good offense. Baltimore is a good offense, so fine, whatever. And we're at the point in the draft now where these are depth plays. I'm not relying on these guys to win me championships. I'm relying on these guys to give me solid value as bench options if the time comes where I need them. Like the guys that you draft in the 12th, 13th, 14th round, you're hoping for a couple of games out of them. If you get 2 or 3 good games out of them, then you won. Then you did well with that pick. Yep, I would take Diggs over Waddle. I expect Diggs to soak up a wide receiver 1 target share. Waddle is good. I know he had a bad year last year. I don't think he suddenly became less talented. I think it was just a bad, fluky, weird year. But the Patriots feel like an ascending team, and the Dolphins feel like a team that could compete and absolutely also could implode. So I'll take the safe play in Stephon Diggs. So I'm fine with that. How high would I rank Nico in full PPR? I mean, it goes Chase, Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb. I would go Puka now that Matthew Stafford is healthy. And then I might go Nico at 5. I think I would put him I would put him 5th. I would put Nico 5th in my wide receiver rankings. He was on pace for a dominant season last year before he got injured. I think he got injured week 5, and then he missed 4 or 5 weeks. And then he came back and he was still solid. He still put up good numbers even post-injury, which is not an easy thing to do. Now fully healthy, Tank Dell is not going to play football this year. Stephon Diggs, just talked about him, moved on to New England. They traded for Christian Kirk. I don't know what Christian Kirk has left in the tank at this point in his career. He himself has suffered 2 back-to-back season-ending injuries the past couple of years. One happened mid-season. The other happened later in the year, but still did not finish the season the past 2 years due to injury for Jacksonville. Now with Houston at this stage of his career, I don't know what Christian Kirk can give you. Jaden Higgins, exciting, enticing, interesting young rookie, but we'll see. He hasn't played a down yet in the NFL. Jalen Noel, same deal, 3rd-round pick. I mean, we're excited about these guys. I believe in Higgins, but they haven't done it yet. And this team might be really bad, Houston, running the football. Joe Mixon is hurt. Nick Chubb might be cooked. Woody Marks is a 24-year-old 4th-round pick. I'm not trying to make that he's not like this young, flashy prospect. He might be solid for them, and they might need him this year, but he's a 4th-round pick. He might be a developmental guy. They still have Dameon Pierce. He's been kind of whatever since the first few weeks of his rookie season. Maybe he gets in there. Maybe they make a trade. either way, and Houston's offensive line is probably not going to be that good. They may not be able to run the ball very well. They're going to have to throw. Nico Collins should probably see 160-plus targets. He's my wide receiver 5 in my preseason wide receiver rankings. Crap, I'm getting hit with spam. Don't worry, I got it. Get out of here, NFL game streaming on NFL. We're not interested. We don't want your lemonade. Yeah, Nico is my wide receiver 5. Am I on the clock? I am on the clock. I guess I need a defense and a kicker. Another thing I like to do, I like to draft one of these two things, but not the other. And I'll explain myself in a second. I took the New England Patriots the last time I did this. This time I will take the Arizona Cardinals. Because for just 1 week, I'll take a shot on Arizona because they're playing the New Orleans Saints. Remember, we don't want to lock in on if you draft a defense in the 12th or 13th round, then you're probably hoping and banking on that defense being a stalwart for you for at least the first few weeks of the season. For me, defense can be week to week. If I hit on a defense and they play great week 1 and then they have a good matchup week 2, great. I'll keep them. But if they play great week 1 and I don't like their matchup week 2, I don't care that I draft him in the 14th round. I'll just cut him and pick up a better defense with a better matchup the next week. Arizona plays New Orleans. That looks like an offense that, we'll see. We'll see how things play out. Nothing's set in stone just yet. New Orleans looks like an offense that is going to be worth targeting for opposing defenses over the course of the season because their quarterback play is very much like a transition into 2026. So if defenses are playing New Orleans, on paper right now, I want to take that shot. Arizona plays New Orleans week 1. I'll take that shot. But anyway, I like to just draft one of either a defense or a kicker, and then I want to draft at the end of my draft, stash that guy, or even if he's not injured, just stash an extra running back or a wide receiver. You never know what could happen between now and the start of week 1. What happens if an injury takes place and then all of a sudden you happen to throw a dart at a guy and he emerges as a potential candidate to play week 1? I want to maximize that time that I have before I absolutely definitively have to set my starting lineup. I'll pick up a kicker like 10 minutes before the week 1 slate starts. Give me Rico Dowdle as a dirt cheap depth running back to hang on to. And then when it is 12:45 Eastern Standard Time, week 1, September 7th, the first Sunday of the season, that's when I'll pick up a kicker and I'll drop Rico Dowdle. Thoughts on Keenan Allen? Yeah. I feel strongly about him as a late wide receiver flex option. Old savvy vet, but he is reuniting with an offense that he is very familiar with. He spent, other than last year, his entire career with the LA Chargers. He has caught the ball from Justin Herbert for multiple seasons. This is not a new situation for him, even though he was with Chicago last year. This is a situation that he is very familiar with. I'm sure that he is very comfortable with. Herbert is a good quarterback. Oh, we're at the end of the draft. I don't need to keep scrolling. In fact, I will go ahead and drop down. I can't pick any more players, so I will just drop this down really quickly so we can look at the whole board or a larger amount of the board. Yeah, I like Keenan Allen, especially in PPR leagues. Half PPR, he's fine there as well. There's a lot of question marks still in LA's receiver room. Quentin Johnston is hurt, dealing with a concussion. Trey Harris, second-round pick. I don't think he set the world on fire this year. This offseason. Keandre Lambert-Smith, he's interesting. He's flashed in camp and in the preseason, but he's a rookie. He's with late draft capital. He's going to take some time. They brought in Ty Conklin to play tight end. They drafted Gadsden at tight end. He might be a project. He might be, there's a lot of young, unproven guys in this Chargers pass catching room. So Keenan Allen should do just fine. He should do just fine as a veteran add in an offense that he is very familiar with. All right, well done, everybody. The draft is complete. I will talk about. I'll skip over team 2 because that's a computer team, and I'll skip over my own team for now. I will go over each team, so feel free to stick around. I will talk about each squad. I will try to keep it somewhat brief so I'm not making anybody wait too long. And then we'll go from there. And yep, I mentioned this a little earlier, probably in the first round when McCaffrey got drafted. I am in on Christian McCaffrey. I get it if you don't want to be, because if you had him last year, he killed you. You probably, unless you were able to get Jordan Mason, if you drafted Christian McCaffrey last year, you probably missed the playoffs because that's the 101. That's the first overall pick in the draft, and you didn't have him for basically the entire year. And when you did have him, he was a shell of himself. The vibes seem different this year. Multiple players are commenting and raving about Christian McCaffrey. Trent Williams was the latest one today. The reports out of camp are good. We're getting highlight videos where he looks like himself. When I say highlight videos, it's practice videos where he's running against air. There's only so much stock that we can put into that. But at least this time last year, wasn't Christian McCaffrey in Germany getting a procedure done for like tendonitis or whatever it was that he had going on? The vibes are night and day this year to last year. I am a big proponent of swinging for the fences, swinging for the upside, and trying to hit home runs. I don't want to try to hit a single in the first round. I want to try to hit a home run. Christian McCaffrey is a home run. If I strike out trying, then so be it. But I want to swing for the big upside, and Christian McCaffrey is one of the greatest fantasy producers at the running back position of our time in this generation. I am willing to take my shot on that guy even when he's 28, 29 years old. And consider, yeah, he was hurt last year, but guess what that translated to? He didn't get a ton of work. He hasn't accumulated a ton of work over the past couple of years. So in a way, his body is fresh. You know, he didn't have the significant yeoman's level workhorse role, and he didn't soak up, 300, 350 opportunities last year. So he should be a little fresh, even, given the circumstances, given the the context. Okay, I am going to, if I remove myself from How about now? Sorry about that. I think my audio is back. My bad. I was looking at the chat. I was looking at the draft, and I wasn't looking at the chat, and appeared to have some audio issues. Apologies for that. Well, I just talked about pretty much all of Team 1. Sorry about that. Basically, let me run it back real quick. I like Team 1. Cook and Hill kind of have some yellow flags. Touchdown regression for Cook, potentially. Miami could just be a ticking time bomb in general. But obviously, good players in good situation, Cook's a good player in a good situation. I'm not banking on 18 touchdowns again, but decent spot. Got his contract, so that's good. Tyreek, we know what Tyreek can do. It's just a matter of advanced age. Is he disgruntled in Miami? He had a wrist injury last year. Hopefully he's cleared from that or cleared of that. We'll see. And then I like the picks of Henderson, Connor, Adunze, Pearsall. I think that's great value at running back and wide receiver. Good picks at the turn. Njoku, good investment at tight end. Good value at tight end, catching the ball from Joe Flacco. He should be really good for the first at least month of the season. Hopefully, if they make a quarterback change to either Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel, hopefully they continue to lean on Njoku. Young quarterbacks tend to like throwing the ball to tight ends. We'll see how long Njoku's value holds up. But for at least the first few weeks of the season with Flacco in there, he's a strong tight end one. ETN I'm not crazy about, but you did get Bishal Tootin, so I like the protecting the investment. I prefer Tank Bigsby. He's cheaper, and I think he's going to get some valuable carries, potentially some goal line opportunities for the Jaguars. Dak Prescott, good quarterback value, very cheap. Lots of passing upside. CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Jake Ferguson. I don't think the Cowboys are going to run the ball very well this year. And if they don't have Micah Parsons, or if Overshown is slow coming back from his injury, they may struggle on defense. And so they're going to be giving up points, which means that offense needs to keep pace, in particular the passing offense. So great value in Dak. And then the Chiefs and McPherson for some to round out. And Dante Thornton. I like Dante Thornton as a depth wide receiver, taking a dart throw shot on him. He should start for the Raiders outside. I don't know if that's going to result in significant production behind Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers and Ashton Genty. But he doesn't project as a slot wide receiver. He projects as the outside, as lining up on the outside. Something the Raiders need. He seems to be getting that opportunity. So yeah, I like Thornton. I like this team overall. Yeah, sorry about the audio issues. Sorry about the audio. I removed myself from the chat to try to blow up the draft, and in turn, it killed the audio. So that was my fault. That was my bad. But we're going to keep it moving. So overall, I like Team 1. James Cook, Tyreek Hill, some yellow flags, not red flags, but some yellow flags with those two, and I like the makeup overall. I'm going to skip Team 2 because that's a computer team. Although they did get some pretty good value with Bowers in the 3rd and Adams in the 5th. But they made a stupid pick with Mixon in the 6th and Godwin in the 8th. Jaden Reed's potentially not going to play week 1, so they made some interesting choices. And drafting Dalton Kincaid after you draft Brock Bowers is stupid, but it's a computer. Computers are stupid. Don't take my job, AI. I actually like computers. Computers are great. Keep doing your thing. All right, Team 3, CeeDee Lamb. I recall that this was a situation where you knew that, you have this pick. You would go Bijan Robinson, but he's not going to make it there, so you're testing some different things. Totally fine. Jahmyr Gibbs is in play at that spot. Justin Jefferson is in play at that spot. It's your personal preference. If you like Lamb, take Lamb. No issues. Kyron Williams, Amarian Hampton at the 2nd and 3rd picks. I like those picks. Filling out running back with a guy who just got paid. He just got committed to by his team with a contract in Kyron. And then a rookie who has skyrocketed up in value because of the Najee Harris injury. And, we have high expectations for Amarian Hampton just in general. 1st round pick of the team, run first offense, has the 1st round profile, And now his veteran incumbent, Najee Harris, is dealing with an eye injury. Hasn't returned to practice yet beyond doing some drills. So Kyron Hampton, like that. Love the pick of George Kittle in the 4th round. I think he should be getting drafted around where Bowers and McBride are going, but you can get Kittle around, in this instance, a round and a half later than those two guys. And I think he's going to get some rock solid volume, this year. You know, Debo's gone. Ayuk's not going to play for at least the first month. Juwan Jennings is not practicing right now. Might have a calf injury. Maybe he's just holding in for a new contract. The 49ers haven't been willing to give it to him to this point, and he's missed pretty much all of training camp. Kittle's going to get a ton of volume. So I quite like him at tight end this year. If you take the plunge at tight end this year, that's the guy I want. If you go for a high, top 40 pick tight end, Kittle's the guy I want. I'm not going to say no to Brock Bowers or Trey McBride. They're both excellent, but Kittle's cheaper than both of those guys, and I think he's going to give you 90 cents on the dollar compared to what those two guys are going to give you. So I like him for based on that at his cost. Ted McMillan seems to be getting a lot of positive rave and review recently from the Panthers, from the coaches, from the offense in general. It seems like that the passing offense is going to go through him. He might be the focal point as a rookie. They drafted him 8th overall, so obviously they have high expectations from the jump. Adam Thielen is a savvy 57-year-old vet at this point, so you expect good things from him as far as possession receiver at this point of his career, security blanket for Bryce Young. After that, Xavier Legette, I like him. Interesting player, probably better suited as a number 2, and that's what he's going to be now. Jalen Coker, interesting prospect. We'll see. Jatavian Sanders, intriguing guy at tight end. Ted McMillan's going to be, based on what we're hearing, what we're seeing, and what we know, he's going to be the dude in this offense, at least from throwing the football. So I like him in the 5th round. Pacheco in the 6th round should be fine to start the season. I'm curious to see if he maintains 1A duties all season long. How many touchdowns does Kareem Hunt vulture? Does Brashard Smith get an opportunity? Much like Isaiah Pacheco, 7th round rookie a few years ago, and emerges from a pack of, ragtag veterans. Now Pacheco is kind of, we like Pacheco. He runs hard. He runs with a lot of effort and energy. Will he be able to bounce back from the broken leg that he suffered last year? He didn't look like himself, even though he returned from that at the end of the season last year. Hopefully a healthy offseason will do him some good, but how long does he hold on to that opportunity, that 1A duty? Should be fine for the first month of the season at least. We'll see after that. How does Kareem Hunt get involved? Does Brashard Smith get involved? I don't know if Elijah Mitchell's going to get involved, but they did sign him. But, for the available running backs that are there, he was fine to take for some running back depth. Waddle in the 7th round, good value. Downs in the 8th round, I want that to be good value, but he suffered a hamstring injury. So we'll see. I want to believe in Josh Downs. We don't know the severity of the hamstring injury just yet, though, so something to monitor. But I like that spot. I like the Scatabo value. I do not think that he will be the guy week 1. I think it'll be Tyrone Tracy just because of the missed practice time that Scatabo has over the past couple of weeks. He hasn't practiced. I think he's gonna have a great chance to take over this job over the course of the season. So Scatabo is the type of guy where I'm willing to be patient on if I draft him. I don't want to start him week 1 until I see what that breakdown looks like. But I like the pick for the long haul. Mooney makes me a little more nervous. This shoulder injury sounds serious from what let's all look together at whatever. Okay, so the last update was almost 10 days ago, and he remains week to week. Hasn't practiced since July 24th. That's a month. That's a month in a couple of days. He could be a pup list candidate. And, Mooney had a good season last year. His production dried up when Michael Penix was inserted as the starter. Now, that doesn't mean that that's just going to automatically happen again this year, but Penix was looking for Drake London and Bijan Robinson pretty much in the 3 or 4 games that he played last year. He was a rookie getting his first NFL opportunity. So it makes sense that he hyper-targeted his top weapons. But Mooney's production fell off a cliff with Penix in there under center in the 3 or 4 games that he played last year, and I think he missed 1 game or so due to injury. So the numbers weren't there. The sample size that we have from Mooney last year stems from his time with Kirk Cousins, not Michael Penix. Hopefully Mooney can come back healthy and produce at a level similar to what he was doing back in 2024. I don't know that I want to pull the trigger on him, though, given the fact that he hasn't practiced for a month. He's still week to week. And I don't know if Penix is going to throw him the ball enough, as much anyway, as Kirk Cousins did. So I'm not crazy about Mooney. I do like the Purdy pick in the 11th round. I think that was great value. I like the Purdy pick. I think he's deserving of going in the 9th round. I would probably take him ahead of, maybe not ahead of Kyler Murray, because Kyler's got the Konami code. He can run. But Purdy looked pretty solid last year in a bad situation. 49ers suffered a lot of injuries. They didn't have a good year last year. Purdy, I think, overcame quite a bit and put in a solid performance. So I quite like that pick. Kyle Williams, Jalen Coker, some decent dart throws at wide receiver. I'm okay with that. Team is solid. There are some question marks at wide receiver. Your wide receiver 3 is going to be Jalen Waddle. I actually think that's pretty good, but after that, we're dealing with some injuries and unknowns. Mooney with the shoulder, and then some unknowns in Kyle Williams and Coker. But I like the upside of Kyle Williams. The vibes have been fantastic all summer, and during the preseason, he's been getting open constantly and consistently. So, worth a flyer, worth a shot. And then, who does Houston play week 1? At the Rams. I don't know if I want to play the Houston Texans on the road against the LA Rams. Now that Stafford is healthy, he's going to throw the ball to Puka, to Devontae Adams, Kyron Williams. Now, Houston's defense has some good pieces with Will Anderson and Stingley at cornerback. They've got some good options. But I don't like that matchup week 1 against the Rams for Houston. I don't like that. So, Lamb, Kyron, Hampton, Kittle, Tet, I like that. Pacheco's okay. I don't hate it, or I don't love it or hate it. He's fine. Waddle in the 7th round, solid value. Downs, I want to like it, but the hamstring injury we got to keep an eye on. Scatterboo, we're not relying on right away. Mooney, hopefully he comes back sooner than later, but I don't know how confident we are in that. And then Purdy and Williams, I like as a depth quarterback and a late round quarterback for one quarterback, and then a decent depth wide receiver in Kyle Williams. Let's see. Real quick from this question, not Spears. He suffered, I think, a high ankle sprain, so I'm out on Tajay Spears. Braylon Allen for sure. He seems like I don't know if he forced a committee in the Jets running back room or if the team just doesn't feel super confident about Breece Hall, but that every indication is that backfield is headed toward a committee, and Braylon Allen is a lot cheaper than Breece Hall right now. So Allen for sure. And then in PPR, probably Thornton, because I think he's going to start for the Raiders. But Bryant is perfectly fine as well to take a shot on after the trade of Devon Vele. I would lean Allen for sure, and then one of those 2 wide receivers since it's full PPR scoring. Not Tajay Spears, high ankle sprain. No, thank you. Sampson is interesting. He might get a good opportunity. He might get a good shot, especially with all the mess with going on with Quinshon Judkins, but also the Browns might add to their backfield. They might add to their backfield. They are rumored to be involved on the trade market with or looking for another running back. So if they add another guy, that makes Sampson even a little less palatable. And then, if Judkins comes back mid-season at some point, he might not even be very good, but they're gonna give him the ball, you would think, as their second round pick. So I'll say Allen and Thornton. Thornton is interesting as a guy who might be a deep threat for the Raiders. And they need that. They need that skill set. Bowers and Jacoby Myers are great weapons for the intermediate parts of the field. They need a field stretcher, and Thornton might be that guy. I would take Allen and Thornton. Those would be my suggestions as those two stashes. Okay. Team 4. Gibbs, Jacobs, McBride. I like that start in half PPR. I would not go. Look, Gibbs is awesome, and we're splitting hairs. I would prefer Robinson, and I'm not just saying that because I ended up with him. I would take Robinson over Gibbs. Full PPR, sure. If you want to take Gibbs over Robinson in full PPR, I'm fine with that. In half PPR, I still lean Robinson. That being said, the first round, these guys are all studs. None of us are walking away without a guy that we have high expectations for. If you have high expectations for Jahmyr Gibbs, then take Jahmyr Gibbs. And then Jacobs, bell cow back half of the second round and a good offense. I'm fine with that. McBride should be a catch monster once again for Arizona, so I'm perfectly fine with him in the third round. And then I think you got a good run of wide receivers here. Sutton, Devontae Smith, Jerry Jeudy, Chris Olave. I like that group for not drafting a wide receiver until the fourth round and then going, grabbing 4 of them. I like that. I like Sutton, clear wide receiver 1 for the Broncos. I like Devontae Smith. He's a stud. He's a top 20 wide receiver. Got a chance to put up wide receiver 1 numbers any given year. And A.J. Brown is tending to a hamstring injury. So, I think Devontae Smith is tending to an injury of his own, but I don't think it's a soft tissue. I'll double check on that. Jerry Jeudy, really good value in the 6th round. I think he's going to ball with Joe Flacco as his quarterback. We'll see what happens after or whenever the Browns bench Flacco in favor of one of their younger quarterbacks. That could submarine anybody's value in the Browns offense. But for at least the first few weeks of the season, they should be solid. The pass catchers should have an opportunity to hit their ceilings. I like Jeudy. And then Olave, I have warmed up to, not in best ball. I don't want to draft Olave in best ball, but he is a safe play in redraft scoring. And if he's healthy, he's usually a rock-solid safe bet for 10 to 15 points. To get him as your wide receiver 4, you can flex him. You're not necessarily relying on him to be a big-time producer as your wide receiver 4 and your 7th round pick, but he should be an every down player for the team. He's healthy now. Hopefully he can stay healthy throughout most of the season. His quarterback play isn't great, but he has produced consistent production when healthy week over week thus far in his career. You can bank on him getting solid, if not spectacular production. It's not going to blow the top off, but you should be able to get some valuable 10 to 15 point production from him. Wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2 upside. He generally has the floor of a flex play. He is very safe. And I think he's actually a solid value in the 7th round. Is he a risk? Of course. He's got more concussions, unfortunately, through this point of his career than most players. So we're hoping for the best, and we're hoping that he makes it through a season unscathed or mostly unscathed, just because players pick up injuries all the time. It's football. Hopefully Olave can make it through most of the season. I like him as a wide receiver 4. I like this start, top to bottom. I like this start. I probably wouldn't draft Baker. It's a good pick in the 8th. It's decent value in the 8th round. I worry about Baker for a couple of reasons. He has Mike Evans. He has Buka to throw the ball to. Cade Otton's a decent tight end. But he's not going to have his starting left tackle for at least the first month of the season in Tristan Wirfs, and he's not going to have Chris Godwin or Jalen McMillan for at least the first few weeks of the season. And for McMillan, he's probably not going to be available until weeks 8 or 9. I think the Bucs offense has a chance to underperform for the first month of the season relative to expectations. That is not a death sentence for the Bucs offense. I still want Bucky Irving. I still want Mike Evans. I still want Emeka Egbuka. It's just that the offensive line play is everything for the consistency of a good offense. And Tristan Wirfs, his absence for the first month of the season is going to hurt. Chris Godwin's absence for the first month of the season is going to hurt. And then Jalen McMillan, that's just more depth at wide receiver that they lost. I think it consolidates the targets for guys like Evans and Egbuka, but I don't know that that helps boost the prospects of Baker Mayfield's fantasy production. So while I think Baker is a very good quarterback, I'm not actively targeting him this year. I don't know that I would draft him. Same deal with Brandon Ayuk. I mean, at this point, we're hoping for week 6 because that's the timeline that the team gave us. We're getting hit with more ads. I'll close some tabs. Maybe that'll get some of these ads out of here. Ayuk, I don't want to draft him this year. He might be a second half hero. I'm not in that camp of belief. He has been spending any time that he's been spending this offseason has been spent rehabbing the injury, not practicing, not doing football activities. He's been rehabbing a serious knee injury. We're probably not going to have him until weeks 5 or 6. And then when he does come back, what percentage of Brandon Ayuk can we realistically expect? Like week 7, week 8, week 9, are we going to get 80% of Brandon Ayuk? Or are we going to get like 50% of Brandon Ayuk? And either way, I don't know that either one of those is usable from a fantasy perspective. I think Ayuk is a play for 2026, not the second half of 2025. My guess would be we're going to come up a little disappointed on Brandon Ayuk for the 2025 season, even relative to reduced expectations. It's tough to come back a year removed from a serious knee injury and expect him to return to form quickly. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Ayuk is a good play for 2026, not 2025. I like Colston Loveland, but I wouldn't have drafted him after drafting Trey McBride. For me personally, if I'm drafting Trey McBride in the 3rd round, that's my tight end. That's my guy. That's the guy that I'm rocking with at tight end, and I'm not taking a tight end too. I will grab Colston Loveland off of waivers if he makes sense and is available for Trey McBride's bye week. Otherwise, I'm rocking with McBride. I like Colston Loveland, but I want Colston Loveland as a depth or as a sleeper value tight end if I haven't drafted a tight end yet. I don't want Colston Loveland after having drafted Trey McBride. But I really like these running back values in Braylon Allen and Jerome Ford. I'm not crazy about Baker, but you drafted him to be your guy, so I'm a little less bullish on Herbert in the 14th round, even though that is great value for Justin Herbert. That is a great spot to get him. I don't know that that's where I don't know that I want Herbert after taking Mayfield in the 8th. I don't want to draft Mayfield, but in this particular instance, you drafted Mayfield sort of presumably to be your guy. I might have left Herbert on waivers personally. My team 5. Robinson, I was happy to end up with that. Chase Brown, I grappled with a lot of different guys. I grappled with Josh Jacobs. I grappled with Ladd McConkey. I could have taken Brock Bowers there. Ultimately opted to go robust running back to start my draft. I like Chase Brown quite a bit. I think he's going to catch a lot of passes. I think he's going to be the Bengals bell cow. So I'm happy to get him at the end of the 2nd round. Higgins, I'm happy with. Burrow, I wouldn't normally take, especially over Jalen Hurts, but I had 2 Bengals, so I decided to stack it up. I also would have really liked to draft George Kittle in the 4th round, but see, that is the drawback. If you're me, if you invest in multiple players on the same offense, you're going to feel maybe a little bit more inclined to take the quarterback and build those stacks. So, I don't mind that this is how it came together, but I don't know that I would chase this strategy again. Rashee Rice in the 5th round. He's going to play the first 4 weeks of the season, and I expect him to put up wide receiver 2 or potentially low-end wide receiver 1 numbers because that's what we saw from him before he got injured last year. And Rice has been full go for practices and training camp this year, at least is what I last saw. It's a ticking time bomb. He could get suspended for 6 games, and then we don't have him for week 6 through 13 or week 7 through 14. And then you don't have him in the guts of the season when I need to stack wins to get my playoff spot. So that hurts. Ultimately, I am probably passing on Rashee Rice, but it looked pretty good in the 5th round. I wanted to take a look at it. I don't know. I feel a little better that it's the 5th round. I couldn't take him before this. He's still very volatile, but I took a shot with with a guy who, maybe for the first 4 weeks is able to give me some strong performances and some strong production. JMO, big fan. Happy that I could get him in the 6th round. I think he's going to take yet another step forward this year in that offense, continuing to refine his route running, multiple years removed from injuries and random off-field stuff and suspensions. And the coaches are singing his praises. It's wheels up for Jameson Williams this year. I was very happy to end up. Very, very happy to end up with him. Andrew, 7th round. I might take that pick back next time. I like the Stephon Diggs pick. Jacoby Myers, I like that pick. I like Matthew Golden. I might take that one back. I don't mind Mark Andrews. I think, I'm looking for a tight end that I think has a chance to get off to a strong start. And with potentially no Isaiah Likely for week 1, I think Andrews is that guy. I kind of like some of these other depth tight ends, though, that I could have had a round or 2 later. So, especially after taking Burrow in the 4th round and then following up with Andrews in the 7th round, I think I hurt my running back and wide receiver depth more than I would have liked. I don't know that I would pursue this build once again. Taking a quarterback and a tight end 80 picks into a draft, both, I don't feel great about it. I don't love this build that I put together. I like these depth running backs that I grabbed. I like Rashid Shaheed and Rashad Bateman. I feel like my wide receivers are not great. They're okay. They're not great. I maybe drafted 1 running back too many after going robust running back with Bijan Robinson and Chase Brown. Maybe I don't need 6 or 7 running backs. Maybe I'm good to get away with 5 and go 6, 7 wide receivers. I don't love my team. I'm happy I did it this way because I can definitively look at it and say, I don't want to draft both a quarterback and a tight end in the first 75, 80 picks of a draft. I think my wide receiver depth is not strong. I think my running back depth is a little too much. Probably could have taken an extra wide receiver. And I could have easily taken another tight end that I like in this range, like a Tucker Kraft, a Jake Ferguson. Yeah. I would pass on Mark Andrews at this point. And I did, if I find myself in a position to build the Bengals stack, then so be it. But then I don't want to draft a tight end super high because I'll have already invested a high pick in Burrow at quarterback. Yeah. Overall, I don't like my team. Some of that might have been slightly by design, but I would have held out. I was holding out hope that I would like it, just to give me something to think about it. Something to think about, but I don't. I don't like it. Team 6, Justin Jefferson, Bucky Irving, Smith and Jigba, Jaden Daniels gets the stack with Terry McLaurin in the 5th round. I think that's a pretty good dip buy on Terry. Swift, Diggs, Jordan Mason, Kraft at tight end, Spears, Najee, Jennings, Ferguson, Corum, and then didn't draft a defense, which I'm fine with. I like that strategy. Jefferson, stud. Bucky, stud. Smith and Jigba, high expectations after last year, and the unquestioned wide receiver 1 for Seattle. Daniels, stud. McLaurin, you get the stack. Hopefully they resolve something soon in the form of the contract. I really like those first 5 picks for Team 6. DeAndre Swift is okay. He's in that running back dead zone area where it's kind of hard for me to get excited about him. I know he's the starter. He's been in a Ben Johnson offense before. He fell out of favor in a Ben Johnson offense before. The Bears didn't add anything of significance to their backfield. No disrespect to Kyle Monangai. 7th round draft capital. He could have a role. He seems to be turning heads and making waves in camp, but they didn't invest significant resources either through the draft or free agency and running back. So Swift looks like he should be the guy. I just don't know if it'll play out that way. It looks like it will at first. Yeah. It looks like that way at first, but if Monangai mixes in, I don't know if Roshan Johnson will get a little involved. I feel like, I don't know if I want to label DeAndre Swift smoke and mirrors, but he makes me a little nervous. He should have a role all, if not most of the season. He makes me a little nervous because I've seen him fall out of favor in a Ben Johnson-led offense before, back during their days in Detroit. But I like the Diggs pick in the 7th round. I don't know if he's going to play week 1. Diggs' availability for the start of the season seems to be a little bit up in the air, but his availability for training camp and practices, that's been fine. There's been no issues there, and he's probably going to get a wide receiver 1 target share from an ascending quarterback in Drake May. So I like the Diggs pick. I like the roll of the dice on Mason in the 8th round. Should be the short yardage goal line guy. And Aaron Jones, who I love. I love Aaron Jones. He's been my guy forever. He is getting older, so I don't mind the Mason pick. I like the Kraft pick in the 9th round. Good value at tight end. Should be heavily involved this year. Lots of question marks for the Packers at wide receiver. Kraft might give them some stability. I'm not crazy about these next 3 picks. Tajay Spears, high ankle sprain. I don't want to sound like I'm overreacting, but that might submarine his season. High ankle sprains are not good news. Those issues linger. They are high chance of re-injury after you come back from them. I don't like high ankle sprains. I don't mess with high ankle sprains. Tajay Spears had some injury issues last year. He's had injury issues over the course of his career. I'm out on Tajay Spears. Najee Harris, eye injury, doing drills and sprints at practice. I don't know when he's going to actually practice. I don't know what his availability for games looks like. Big question mark. Jawan Jennings fell pretty hard, but I don't know that I trust him either. I don't know that his role is secure. He might be the 4th option behind McCaffrey, Kittle, and Ricky Pearsall any given week. And he's holding in, presumably, I don't know if he's healthy. He's being listed with a calf injury. Maybe he's fine. Maybe he's just holding out for more money. He hasn't gotten it yet from the team. And subsequently, he missed all of August as far as practices and preseason games go. So I'm not crazy about these 3 depth options. And then I don't mind the Ferguson pick. You took Kraft in the 9th round. I might have just rocked with Kraft, but that's not so expensive that I think it's egregious to take Ferguson a few picks later. So I'm okay with that. Overall, I like the draft. I do. Terry McLaurin obviously needs to sign his contract. I don't love picks 10 through 12. These are not my favorite depth options. But the rest of the roster is solid. He did auto draft some. So those picks maybe weren't his selections. But my point stands. I don't want to draft Tajay Spears. I don't want to draft Jawan Jennings. I don't want to draft Najee Harris. Team 7, Derrick Henry. I probably would take McCaffrey over Henry, but Henry's a beast. He's one of one. He's in a great offense, great rushing attack. Splitting hairs, I don't care too much. AJ Brown, he's making me a little nervous with this hamstring issue. He's missed a decent amount of time. I'll put it at a yellow flag, not a red flag, but a yellow flag. AJ's getting a little older. He's 27, 28 at this point. Hamstring injury. Hopefully it doesn't linger, but those injuries can linger. Hopefully it doesn't happen. But he has missed a decent amount of practice time. Obviously, when he's out there, he's a wide receiver 1. I don't know that I would have taken him there, but we'll see. Kamara in the 3rd round. I'm just looking at the other running backs that went after him. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with Kamara in the 3rd. The Saints offense worries me, but Kamara is a dynamic weapon. They'll find ways to get him involved in the passing game. That'll boost his floor. I just worry that because it's not a good offense. But Kamara will get his. He will get his opportunities. DK Metcalf, DJ Moore, solid. Metcalf unquestioned wide receiver 1 for Aaron Rodgers, so he should be fine. DJ Moore at a bit of a reduced cost in the 5th round. I don't know that he'll be the wide receiver 1 yet again for Chicago. They have a lot of weapons there and new coaching staff. But DJ Moore's a talented wide receiver. He will be heavily involved regardless. So decent. Kelsey in the 6th round is fine. You are banking on a long suspension from Rashee Rice in the middle of the season. That's what you're hoping for when you draft Travis Kelce. Because initially he was looking like he was going to be really good for the first month of the season. Because Rashee Rice, we thought his suspension was going to come at the beginning of the year. Now it looks like it's going to come in the middle of the season. So we may have to be a little bit more patient with other Chiefs pass catchers. But Kelce in the 6th round, I don't have any problem with. Weeks 6 through 13, he might be a difference maker once again. He might turn back the clock. We shall see. Bo Nix in the 7th round, Cooper Kupp in the 8th round, Kyler Murray in the 9th round. I struggle with Cooper Kupp. He's older. I think he's lost a step. He's a savvy vet at this point. So you know that you can trust him to do his job and do it the right way and do it well. I just wonder, are the physical capabilities still there? And now he's in a new offense, probably a worse offense than the ones he enjoyed in LA. Sam Darnold is a downgrade from Matthew Stafford. Seattle's offensive coordinator, is it Ryan Grubb? Who's Seattle's offensive coordinator? Whoever they are, it's a step down from Sean McVay. Oh, Clint Kubiak. That's right. They replaced Ryan Grubb. Still, it's not Sean McVay, it's not Matthew Stafford, and it's not Cooper Kupp from 4 or 5 years ago. So I'm a little worried about Kupp. I don't know that I can pull the trigger on him. And then I would not have taken Bo and Kyler. I would have settled on one and then take something else. After you take your quarterback. Ramondre, fine depth, but he is a depth play behind TreVeyon Henderson. Kyle Pitts, I wouldn't have drafted since you already have Kelce. Ray Davis, I like as a depth running back. I think he's going to get involved, even though the Bills extended James Cook. I think they're going to get Ray Davis involved. I took some shares of Hollywood Brown earlier this season, but he can't seem to stay healthy yet again, so I kind of shied off of those. This team has some question marks. A.J. Brown's health. The running backs are a little old with Henry and Kamara, but we can expect them to still do it. Metcalf and Moore should be fine. Kelsey's old. Hopefully he can, I think he's like out for a little bit of like vengeance after how last season went for Kelsey. So hopefully he can find that fire. I don't know that I'm fine with drafting two quarterbacks, but I don't know if I want to draft two quarterbacks that high. Kupp, I have questions about. Ramondre is probably going to fall out of favor or could fall out of favor with this new coaching staff if he continues to fumble the ball. That's been a problem for him the past couple of years. Pitts, God, I want him to be good. I just don't know if he's going to be. I like Ray Davis as a dart throw. This Baltimore, and I wouldn't draft the Ravens defense because they're playing the Bills week 1. So I don't want to draft the Ravens defense this year. Like, if you want to keep the long view and focus, fine. But I'm not playing the Ravens defense week 1 against Josh Allen. There's no way. So I think there's some question marks on this team. Injuries with AJ and Kupp's injury history and Hollywood Brown. And then, it's an older group. And I don't want that to sound like I'm just, there's no young guys on this team, so I'm out. That's not the case. It's just, it's a little more volatile. Age catches up to these players eventually. So, just calling that out. Teammate, Christian McCaffrey, love it. Swing for the fences. Go for that home run. I like that pick quite a bit. Nico Collins at the 205. He should have gone higher than that, so that's a great value. I like Mike Evans at the 308. Garrett Wilson, I want to believe in. I think you got good value getting him in the 4th round, but he may be held back this year by Justin Fields. But on the plus side, he should get a wide receiver 1 target share. Love Harvey in the 5th. That is an example. Sometimes I like taking the value like in a split backfield in a committee. I want to take the cheaper guy. Not the case in this situation. I want the younger running back that the team invested good draft capital in over the vet who I like J.K. Dobbins. I root for J.K. Dobbins after everything that transpired in the early part of his career, but he has suffered a lot of injuries up to this point. A little bit older, veterans minimum contract. They didn't pay him a ton of money. I see Harvey maybe not starting out as the main guy, but ascending to that spot sooner than later, with a lot of room to grow and get better. So I like the Harvey pick. I like the Pollard pick in the 6th round. Again, I'm out on Tajay Spears, high ankle sprain. That shit lingers, man. Those injuries linger even when you get healthy from them. They just do. I like Tajay Spears. I want Tajay Spears to succeed because I know he's had, a tough break with injuries. I think he doesn't even have an ACL in one of his knees. He may have tendinitis. He may have a short career. Unfortunately, I think injuries are increasing or speeding up his NFL expiration date. That sounds so morbid. I don't want it to, but I'm just trying to get a point across. Another a high ankle sprain for Tajay Spears. I'm out on him. So Tony Pollard, I'm way in on 6th round. I'm fine with in redraft leagues. I'm totally fine with that. Engram in the 7th round. I got burned by Engram last year. He should catch a lot of passes. I don't know if he'll score that many touchdowns, but he should be in a better offense than he was last year or during his time in New York. So, maybe he bounces back. Maybe he catches a lot of passes. No clear-cut wide receiver 2 in Denver. So I'm okay with the cost and the chance that you took. I just have a hard time with Engram after how last year went. But I mean, you could say that about a lot of players. It's just a matter of then it comes down to like, okay, what's their history? And 2 years ago, Engram caught a ton of passes. Still don't think he caught too many touchdowns. So scoring has never been Engram's big thing. It's usually catches and yards. So we'll see if he can emerge as a primary weapon for Denver's offense. I don't mind the shot there. Judkins, I don't really want to draft. I've gone over him multiple times in this live stream. He's got a lot of red flags. I will timestamp the time that I talked about Quinshon Judkins in the news and notes portion of this stream. So you can go check it out there if you would like to hear my extended thoughts on Judkins. I like Jaden Higgins a lot. I think he will emerge as a starter before long, if not very soon, very quickly. Second round pick, high second round pick of the team. So I feel good about Higgins. Garendo returned to practice, and you have McCaffrey, so nicely done getting the handcuff. 2 dirt cheap quarterbacks to take a shot on in May and Stroud, and then another really good depth wide receiver that I like in Cedric Tillman. I really like this team outside of the Quinshad Judkins pick. Engram is fine. Picks 1 through 6 I really like. Picks 7 and 8 are kind of meh, but then I really like picks 9 through 13. Overall, I like team 8. Couple of picks I don't love, but most of it I do quite like. So nicely done. Team 9, Amon-Ra, Devon Achane, Josh Allen, Kenneth Walker, Xavier Worthy, your top 5 picks. Amon-Ra, PPR stud. He's been the wide receiver 3 back-to-back years. No problems. Achane, I want to give a more ringing endorsement to. The calf injury is concerning. Obviously, if he's healthy, we can draft him even a little higher than this. But if he does not practice next week, then I am probably not drafting him over Bucky Irving, Chase Brown, Josh Jacobs, or Kyron Williams. I could see drafting Achane late second, but the calf injury is a concern. And then took the first plunge on the first quarterback with Allen in the 3rd round. That's personal preference. I don't have a problem with it. Not something I necessarily would do myself, but Allen is a machine. He's a Konami code. I get taking the chance on a guy who could be the QB1 overall any given year. He's that dude. He's that guy. And some touchdowns might swing back his way. Some rushing touchdowns might swing his way this year. A lot of them went to James Cook last year. That pendulum could swing back to Allen this year. So I'm fine with it. Walker in the 4th round. I want to be okay with. He did return to practice this week, so that's a good sign. Injuries have been a bit of an issue for Walker over the course of his career. Charbonnet, on the other hand, has not had as many injury issues. He's been pretty available, and availability matters. I think Charbonnet is going to see an increased opportunity, an expanded role this year. So while I think Walker is the de facto starter, reminded us that he's a good pass catcher out of the backfield last year. He wasn't doing that at a super high rate the first couple of years of his career. He did it at a higher rate last year. If he stays healthy, Walker will be very good. But he has injury questions. So he's a little bit of a dart throw. I like Worthy in the 5th round, especially considering you got him after Rashee Rice. Yes, Rice will play the first 4 weeks of the season, but after that, who the hell knows? Who knows? So Worthy could absolutely operate as the team's wide receiver 1 for the guts of the season, weeks like 6 through 13. So I like him in the 5th round. Laporta in the 6th round is fine. I like Laporta. He is a good tight end. I don't know why I have him in in a dynasty league, so I'm like invested in Sam Laporta, but I don't know why I have a hard time drafting him this year. I can't quite put my finger on it. And he was a tight end 1 overall as a rookie 2 years ago, and I think he was the tight end 7 last year, so he was still solid. But if you draft him as the tight end 6 or 5, and he ends up finishing as the tight end 7, you might not be happy with that. You might not be happy with those results. Myers I like as a pick. Khalil Shakir I like quite a bit as an Allen stack. We're hoping he's back week 1. I think he suffered a high ankle sprain too, but hopefully it's like of a more minor variety if he's expected back by week 1. Those injuries do linger. They make me a little concerned, but I do like Shakir. The team invested in him in the form of a contract extension last year. They haven't made any primary big-time additions to the wide receiver room outside of, Keon Coleman drafted 2nd round last year. They added Josh Palmer this year. They added Elijah Moore this year. I mean, I think they expect Khalil Shakir to operate as sort of like their de facto wide receiver 1. So, the high ankle sprain is concerning, but the roll of the dice makes sense since you have Josh Allen. Javonte Williams, fine. Maybe should be the team's running back 1 for at least a portion of the season. There was a time where I was so bullish on Javonte Williams. a brutal knee injury has maybe taken a really good running back career away from us. That happened a couple of years ago. And then Javonte had some lackluster seasons in Denver the past couple of years. And last year, the Broncos had a good offensive line and a good offensive general. Javonte still struggled. Now he's behind a bad offensive line. I want to believe in Javonte. Maybe he'll come through with volume and just out of, sheer necessity, they need him. I don't know how much of an endorsement I can give Javonte Williams in 2025, though. I wish it was a stronger one. I like these depth pieces 10 to 13, though. Marvin Mims, Luther Burden, Trey Benson, Tyler Algier. Plenty of sleeper upside there with Mims, with Burden, with Benson. All of these guys could emerge to have larger roles than they're being drafted as. Algier, probably not, but decent insurance in case anything happens to Bijan Robinson. And he's a good player. We've seen him produce decently well with the opportunities that he gets. So, that's fine as a 13th round pick. I like the depth of this team from like 10 to 12. And then I want to like these running backs. They come with injury concerns. If they're healthy, though, they will, then the upside will be worth it. And then, you just need to kind of wait to see what happens with Rashee Rice and his off-field ruling. If he misses 6 games, Xavier Worthy probably should put up wide receiver 2 numbers. And then, I like Myers. He always outperforms ADP. We'll see about Shakir and the high ankle sprain. There are some injury questions on this team. Achane, Walker, Shakir. I'm feeling much better if I know Achane is okay. That's the linchpin. That's the key. If Achane returns to practice and he's fine, then I'm okay with this team. If he's going to miss more time, then I'm less bullish. Then I'm not as excited about this group, because then you might have to start. If Achane can't play week 1, then you might be starting Javonte Williams, and that makes me nervous. So we need a healthy Achane. Team 10, Neighbors, Thomas, Breece Hall, Lamar, Pickens, Ridley. Yeah, I like this. I mean, Neighbors is a stud. He's managing turf toe, but he returned to practice earlier this week, so he should be fine. And Neighbors is a stud. I like Brian Thomas in the early second round. I think that's a good spot for him. He's a stud. Breece Hall makes me nervous. I don't know that I want to necessarily pick him in the 3rd round. We could be headed for a committee with Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis. But presumably Breece Hall will get first crack at RB1 opportunities. He finished as the RB17 last year, which was incredibly disappointing. Now he's being drafted as the RB around that, 15, 16, 17. So, hopefully we're drafting Breece at his floor. The team seems to be giving us the inclination that they want to do a committee with Braylon Allen. That makes me question whether I want to draft Breece Hall in the 3rd round. You took a shot on him. We'll see what happens. I don't know that I could pull the trigger on that, though, myself. But these next 3 picks are really good. Lamar in the 4th round, rock solid. George Pickens in the 5th round. I think that's really good wide receiver 3 upside in the 5th. Pickens is going to get really good quarterback play, maybe for the first time in his career. CeeDee Lamb is going to take alpha wide receiver opportunities, but he's also going to take alpha wide receiver coverage away from George Pickens. The defense is probably going to have to, run the ones, so to speak. They're going to have to do one-on-one matchups with Pickens because they're going to have to give extra attention to CeeDee Lamb on a play-per-play basis. So I like the Pickens pick. I like the Calvin Ridley pick. I think Ridley is locked and loaded for 140 targets and better quarterback play that he received last year. There's no way Cam Ward is worse than Will Levis. So I quite like the Calvin Ridley pick in the 6th round. I like the Caleb Johnson pick, but we might have to wait on him It sounds like it might be a slow burn with Caleb Johnson. Maybe Jalen Warren is the all reliable vet that they let play for the first couple weeks of the season before they let Caleb take over. But I do like the Caleb Johnson addition. We may just have to be patient with him. Addison in the 8th round, it's fine. Obviously, you know what you're getting. You're going to miss the first 3 games of the season due to the suspension. So you're going to have to be patient. But you have a stable group of wide receivers to hang your hat on, so you can afford to wait on Jordan Addison. The fact that you have 4 really good wide receivers already makes me want to tell you maybe I would have drafted a running back there, maybe a Jordan Mason or a Jalen Warren, just to give you some extra running back depth. You don't need to necessarily wait on Addison because you have 4 really good options at wide receiver, but it's not that, I'm not like so opposed to the decision to draft Jordan Addison there. Just giving like a, an alternate thought for when it becomes real. You are loaded at wide receiver with 4 through your first 6 picks. I'm fine with Addison. I like Addison. Addison's a damn good player. It's just those first 3 games that he's guaranteed to miss kind of hurt. And you're good at wide receiver. So, I'm okay with the pick. I might have considered a running back there just because I feel strongly about my wide receiver core. But Addison makes it even stronger when he comes back. So it's fine. Dobbins in the 9th round should be able to contribute early on, at least. Will have a role throughout the season, I would think. I do prefer RJ Harvey personally as the younger player with the fresh legs, less tread on the tires, less wear and tear. Dobbins has a lot of wear and tear, unfortunately, in the form of significant injury past, and now he's kind of bouncing like on 1-year deals team to team at this point. I prefer Harvey, but Dobbins should have a role, so I don't mind the ad. Pittman stabilized. Josh Downs injury. Daniel Jones presumably raises the floor of the pass catchers for the Colts, so I'm actually okay with Pittman in the 10th round. But there are some question marks in this receiving core of how it's going to shake out, because Pittman didn't have a great year last year. He was battling injuries, but now Downs is hurt. I mean, they have Alec Pierce. They have A.D. Mitchell. They drafted Tyler Warren, who they seem to love. So I think Pittman his floor is raised. So I'm okay with that pick in the 10th round. I like Rachaad White. I've always been a Rachaad White guy. I understand he lost his job to a better player last year. Bucky Irving is a better runner. Rachaad White is not as good of a runner. He's a good receiver, but he's not an efficient runner. So I get it. But I like Rachaad White's skill set. And I'll tell you what, you want to talk about like looking for potential guys that the Bucs need to lean on early on in the season to pick up the slack in the receiving department while Chris Godwin works his way back. And Jalen McMillan is going to miss time with the neck injury. Rachaad White could be out there for extra snaps now, especially on 3rd down. He could be a sneaky depth add for the first few weeks of the season. Chris Godwin slow to return. Jalen McMillan might not come back until week 8 or 9. Rachaad White probably could have some standalone value in half and full PPR leagues for the first few weeks of the season. So I like that pick. And then took some dart throws at Hunter Henry and Dallas Goedert at the end of the draft. I'm perfectly fine with both of those late round shots. I like it. I like this team. I like Team 10. I'm not crazy about the Breece Hall pick. Running back depth might be a week-to-week thing that you have to work throughout the course of the season. Hence why I would have drafted like a Jalen Warren instead of Jordan Addison, because I think your top 4 wide receivers are very strong. And Addison gives you nothing for the first 3 weeks. But on the whole, I like it. The wide receivers are really good. You get a stud in Lamar. You took some cheap shots at tight end. And Rachaad White could emerge as a depth option for the first couple weeks of the season. given the Bucs injury situation. So on the whole, I like Team 10. Team 11, Ashton Jeanty, Drake London from the 111. Jeanty, London, Hubbard, Egbuka in the 4th round, Mahomes in the 5th round, and then Travis Hunter, Tyrone Tracy. Jeanty I'm high on. No problem with him as a first-round pick, especially given the Devon Achane situation. I had Achane over Ashton Jeanty in this scoring before the calf injury, but not anymore. So Jeanty at the 111 makes sense. I quite like Drake London this year. I think he's a lock for 150 targets. And with the Darnell Mooney shoulder injury, I think he's going to get funneled a lot of work, a lot of opportunities. So I really like the London pick. I like the Chuba pick as well. They invested in him. The team gave him the contract. He had a good year last year. Jonathan Brooks is out for the season as he rehabs and nurses injury. They did bring in Rico Dowdle, who I thought had a nice year for the Cowboys last year. He might mix in a little bit more as the RB2 for the team, more than the other RB2s that they had last year. Miles Sanders, Raheem Blackshear, Jonathan Brooks for the short time that he played a couple of games. I think Dowdle will get more work as the team's RB2 than the RB2 options they had last year, but they signed Chuba to the contract. They committed to him. I like him in the 3rd round. Egbuka in the 4th is, look, it's ballsy. It's ballsy. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean it in like you're going out, you're planting your flag, you believe in your guy, you go and get your guy. I respect it. I don't know that I could put him there in the 4th round. But look, we've covered this ad nauseum like a lot today. Chris Godwin is not going to play until October. Jalen McMillan might not play until mid-November. So they need him. The Bucs need Egbuka. They need his usage to be high as much as he can handle as a rookie. And Mike Evans has never been a target hog. He can have his 10 target days, but Mike Evans is an X receiver who's a little older at this point and will probably benefit from a guy working the short and intermediate portions of the field to help stretch the field. Egbuka is going to have to be a guy that leads the team potentially in targets on a week-to-week basis. So I get it. I don't know personally that I'm ready to draft him in the 4th round, but look, the hype is through the roof. If you want a guy, you got to go get a guy. You got to be aggressive. Steve was aggressive and went and got his guy. I can't knock him for it. And the vibes are through the roof right now. So, go and get your guy. If you believe in a player, don't wait. Because you know who else believes in that player? Other people. Other people in your league. You're not the only person who believes in certain players. So if you want to secure a guy, go get that guy. So I'm fine with it. Mahomes in the 5th round is probably a fade for me. I'm expecting better than what we've had from him the past couple of seasons. The past 2 years from a fantasy perspective have been disappointing for Mahomes. Now, he does have probably his best collection of weapons in the past couple of years. Rashee Rice is going to play week 1. What it looks like after his disciplinary hearing on the 30th is anybody's guess. But he'll at least play the first month of the season. Xavier Worthy in year 2, you expect him to take a step forward. Travis Kelce is on the decline now at this point of his illustrious career, but you're hoping that he can give them one last, ride of some solid tight end play to end his Hall of Fame career, or potentially end his Hall of Fame career. He should be a solid security blanket for Mahomes. Obviously, they still have, Mahomes himself is an excellent quarterback, probably tops in the league. Hollywood Brown is hurt. He would have added an element of speed if he's healthy. Hopefully, he can come back healthy soon. I want to believe Mahomes can course correct compared to some of his years prior, but I'm not ready to take him in the 5th round. I'm not ready to take him in the 5th round. He should be decent, but I don't know if he's going to be spectacular. I like the Travis Hunter pick in the 6th round. I like the swing for the fences. Travis Hunter is a home run swing, and those are the types of swings I like taking. He's going to be a main factor on offense, regardless of what his usage looks like, however, what his split on offense versus defense looks like. The Jags didn't draft him second overall to not utilize him on offense. Maybe not as the prime focal point over Brian Thomas, but he's going to see a lot of targets when he's on the field. He's a difference maker. He's a big-time playmaker. I like the swing for the fences as your wide receiver 3. So I'm fine with that. Tracy, I'm fine with his running back depth. I think he's going to start week 1. Scatabo has missed some time in camp with injuries. So I think for Tracy, he has a chance to get off to a decent start. I think he's going to at least be the starter for week 1. In the 7th round, I'll take that for a running back. So I'm fine with that. Tyler Warren making waves in Colts camp. I think they're going to heavily utilize him in the passing offense early on. Daniel Jones, I think, will utilize him as a security blanket. He's catching everything. I don't know that we can have Brock Bowers' expectations as a rookie compared to last year, but he looks the part. He passes the eye test. I think Warren's going to be a big part of their offense. I like him in the 8th round. I like Coleman in the 9th round. He's kind of being drafted close to the dart throw range, but he might be Josh Allen's deep threat. And he's, now he's healthy coming into his 2nd season. Khalil Shakir is on the shelf with the high ankle sprain. He's expected back week 1, but he's not practicing. And we know Josh Allen can throw the ball 150 yards down the field if he wants to. Keon Coleman as a deep threat is looking solid. So I like that pick. And then you took the plunge on Bill, on Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt in the 10th round. Hey, this is where you have to draft him if you want him. There's still a lot to unpack here. There's still a lot to emerge. Is Chris Rodriguez going to be a week 1 veteran start? What is going to happen with Brian Robinson? Is he 100% definitively done with the team? It appears that way, but we'll see. Croskey-Merritt has... the hype is real. He had a really nice long touchdown run in the preseason week 2 game. He's getting first team reps. I get it. The hype is real. We're probably expecting that at the latest week 5 or 6, he takes over as the lead back over Chris Rodriguez. That seems to be the vibe right now in a conservative scenario, like a conservative projection outlook for Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt. Maybe he doesn't start right away, but it seems to be trending in that direction. So this is when if you want him, you got to take him in the 10th round, maybe in the 9th round. Sampson, decent depth play. Troy Franklin, decent wide receiver depth play. They traded Devon Vele, so they clearly they like the depth options they have available to them. And then Ollie Gordon, it's worth the roll of the dice. Devon Achane, calf injury. Jalen Wright has been uninspiring in the limited opportunities that we've seen from him. Maybe it is Ollie Gordon as the change of pace guy, and he might need to do more if Devon Achane's injury is, more serious than we know right now. So, yeah, definitely some dart throws, but a lot of them have a lot of upside. So I like the swings for the fences. I like the team overall. I like Team 11. I'm not crazy about the Mahomes pick in the 5th round. I probably would have waited a little bit longer. But on the whole, I like the team. There is a lot of dart throws, but if only a couple of them hit, you're going to be just fine because you have stalwarts in Ginty and London and Hubbard. So, yeah, I like Team 11. Lots of upside. Lots of upside. And then finally, Team 12. Puka at 112 is a really good value. I like that. Taylor at the 201. I might have taken, if you want to take a running back that high, that's fine. I guess that's okay. I mean, Taylor is a rock solid bet for, anywhere from 12 to 1,400 yards and 10 touchdowns. So he should be fine. And his receiving opportunities, I guess, should be a little bit higher with Daniel Jones than they would be with Anthony Richardson. So I'm okay with that. Harrison, Montgomery, Zay Flowers. I like Harrison at the end of the 3rd round. I think that's good value. He was unspectacular last year, but he didn't totally bust. He had 800 receiving yards as a rookie. That's not bad. That's pretty good. So I think we can expect a bounce back. Montgomery, I'm admittedly not crazy about. I get going after running back depth and wanting to make sure you secure some running back depth. I have a feeling that this is just going to be like Jahmyr Gibbs takes over this year. David Montgomery is a damn good football player. He's a damn good running back, and this is a good offense. But no Ben Johnson. Frank Ragnell, stalwart center on the offensive line, retired. So they're going through some changes. And it wouldn't surprise me to see Gibbs take on even more work this year. So I'm not as crazy about the Montgomery pick as I was last year. But we'll see. I mean, we know that he's a good football player, and he's probably going to still get goal line opportunities, so he should still retain some value. Flowers in the 5th round, solid value. He's a wide receiver 3, and you got him as a wide receiver 3. He's got wide receiver 2 upside, probably not wide receiver 1 upside. So decent value in the 5th round. I'm fine with that. Hawkinson in the 6th round, I'm perfectly fine with. He's got a great chance to get off to a good start. Rookie quarterback in J.J. McCarthy apparently has been throwing the ball to Hawkinson a ton in camp, and Addison's going to miss the first 3 weeks of the season, so Hawkinson is probably going to corral a lot of targets. So I like Hawkinson in the 6th. I am perfectly fine with him being the tight end 4 off the board behind Bowers, McBride, and Kittle. So I like that pick. Debo in the 7th, Golden in the 8th. I like those. I like that value at wide receiver. I've really warmed up to Golden. He seems like he's shaping up to be the Packers wide receiver 1. Jaden Reed is hurt. Dontavian Wicks is hurt. Or no, he's not hurt. He's fallen down the depth chart. Romeo Dobbs is kind of what he is. Christian Watson is the one who's hurt. He's probably not going to play all year or not until late in the season at the earliest. It's shaping up for Golden to take over opportunities in this Packers offense, in a good Packers offense. So I like the Golden pick quite a bit. Robinson has slid down to the 9-12. We'll see what his situation shakes out to, but I think that's solid value. Palmer, decent value in the 10th. That's we know that he's a bit of a downfield threat, and Josh Allen can move the ball downfield. So he could be a decent dart throw here and there. And then Jaden Blue, speaking of dart throws, Dallas's backfield is ambiguous. Take a shot on the rookie. I'm totally fine with that. Super deep late round shots at quarterback that I really like at Fields and McCarthy. Rounded out with Christian Kirk. Whatever. Take a shot on a veteran wide receiver at the end. I quite like this team. I quite like Team 12. I quite like Team 12. I like Team 1. Cook and Hill, yellow flags, but not bad. I like Team 3 start. Pacheco is kind of whatever for me this year, and Downs, unfortunately, is hurt, and Mooney is hurt. But I like the start of that team. Team 4 was autoed. I'll be honest, I don't like my team. I'm not crazy about my team. I think I invested in quarterback and tight end both too high, and it hurt my wide receiver depth. So I'm not crazy about my team. I really like Team 6's Team 6 top to bottom. I like Team 6's top. I don't like Team 6's bottom. Team 6 was auto-drafted. Team 4 was not auto-drafted. Team 6 was auto-drafted. Team 4, did I skip over Team 4? I apologize. I like Team 4, running back, stud tight end, and then hammer wide receiver. I wasn't crazy about Mayfield or Ayuk, but I do like I like the wide receiver depth and the running back depth of this team. My apologies. Team 6 was, I think, an auto draft. I like the start of Team 6, but not the back half as much. Team 7 has some injury concerns with A.J. Brown. Hollywood Brown, that's a little bit more, that's like deep depth, so not as big of a deal. Team 7 is a combination of it's an older team and there's like some injuries to monitor. Henry, stud, but older. A.J. Brown, stud, but older and dealing with the hamstring. Kamara, stud, but older. Metcalf and Moore, solid. Kelsey, stud, but declining and older. Kupp, previous stud, now declining. I have some question marks about this team. There's definitely some talent here. Henry, stud. Kamara, stud. If A.J. Brown is healthy, he's a wide receiver 1. There's just a lot hinging on age and health here. I like Team 8. Evan Ingram doesn't do a whole heck of a lot for me. Neither does Quinshon Judkins, but the rest of the roster, I quite like. Team 9, some question marks. Achan's health, Walker's health, Khalil Shakir's health. Does Javonte Williams keep an RB1 job in Dallas? So I have some question marks, but if the injured guys are healthy, should be fine. I like Team 10. Not crazy about Breece Hall at cost. If he was a round or two cheaper, I might feel a little bit better. Seems to be headed toward a committee. We'll see. But I like the rest of the team's makeup. I like Team 11. Lots of dart throws, to be honest, but there's lots of upside potential there. Just not crazy about Mahomes in the 5th round. And I like Team 12. I like Team 12 quite a bit. All right. That is my overall feedback of this mock draft. Well done, everybody. Hopefully the feedback is either constructive. Hopefully it's helpful one way or another. Not looking to put anybody down based on what they did or how things shaped out. Just giving my 2 cents based on things, how they shake out. If you're happy with it, great. That's what matters. If you're happy with it and I told you I'm not crazy about it, then don't listen to me, because what it matters is if you like it, if you are happy with what you built and put together. If you don't like it and and I tell you that I don't like it, great. We're in lockstep. We can pick a different strategy. If you don't like your team, but I told you I like your team, keep an open mind. But if you still don't like it, do what you like, do what makes the most sense to you. Still pick the players that make the most sense to you. If you like those players, that's all that matters. Build the team that you want. I am just here to provide some thoughts and advice that can hopefully be helpful in one way, shape, or form. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to take a couple of these questions right at the end of the chat, but then I am going to wrap it up. Appreciate everybody coming in and hanging out today for as long as you did. Apologies for the audio issues as I was just about to break down the draft. That was on me. That was my fault. I fixed it. Thank you for your patience as I worked through that. And I will be back on Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Happy to run another mock draft for anybody who will be drafting next weekend. We can continue to talk shop on draft strategy. Speaking of draft strategy, no, it's not a bad strategy to start wide receiver. It depends on your situation. It depends on your league scoring. It depends on where you are drafting in your league. And it depends on the players that are available to you. If the best 2 players that are available to you at your first 2 picks are wide receivers, then take wide receivers and we'll figure out running back later. Ideally, you get a running back, at least one, with your next pick, and then maybe a couple more over your next 2 or 3 picks. But if you're drafting in the middle of round 1 and Justin Jefferson is right there, then take him. And if on the turn, like a Drake London or a Brian Thomas fall to you and you like them better than the available running backs, then take them. It's fine to start. It's fine to start wide receiver if they're the best players on the board when it's your turn to pick and you feel good about them. If all of those things are true, then yeah, take your wide receivers. That's okay. There will be other running backs later that we can get. Depth guys, like, 0 running back strategy. We can still implement that. That's totally fine. That is a viable strategy. CMC at the 101. I'm not taking McCaffrey at the 101, but I am taking McCaffrey in the first round. Maybe the 7th pick, 8th pick, 9th pick, depending on your league scoring. How many members of your league are in or out on McCaffrey. There's going to be a lot of factors there. There are going to be some leagues where everybody's in on McCaffrey and he's going to go 4th or 5th overall. There's going to be other leagues where they're completely out on him and he's going to be a 2nd round pick. I think he falls somewhere in the middle. I think he should be a late 1st round pick. Not the 101, but I think he's perfectly fine to take a swing on at the 107, 108, 109, somewhere in that range. And yeah, you built a good team at 10. I like your squad. I wouldn't draft Breece Hall at 310, but I like the team top to bottom overall. I think it was well done. I think you did well. All right, I got one more question here where you're in a super flex league where league mates wait on quarterbacks. My suggestion for a league that waits on quarterbacks is to draft a stud running back or wide receiver in round 1. And if Josh Allen is still there in round 2, or if Lamar Jackson or Jaden Daniels are still there in round 2, take them. Take one of those guys. That would be my first piece of advice. If you can make that happen, if you can secure a stud running back or wide receiver in round 1 and still get Josh Allen in round 2, that will allow you, in theory, to draft another collection of good running backs and wide receivers in rounds 3 and 4 and still end up with a good QB2 in round 5. I've been in leagues like this before, a super flex league where quarterbacks were waited on. Me personally, I will get 2 quarterbacks by round 5, round 6 at the absolute latest. I don't care that my league mates are waiting on quarterback. I'm going to take advantage. I'll take my stud running back and wide receiver around still getting 2 stud quarterbacks, or at least 1 stud quarterback, and then another viable option a couple rounds later. I would do stud running back or wide receiver in round 1. If you know for sure that your league mates will also do something similar, I would then be the one to take the plunge and get Josh Allen in round 2. It's still super flex. Secure the stud quarterback that in other super flex leagues would easily go 101. I will take that guy in the second round. I will then get another good running back and or wide receiver in rounds 3 and 4. Maybe a difference-making tight end in Brock Bowers or Trey McBride if they fall in that range. And then if I can get, if your league mates wait, if Bo Nix or Kyler Murray, who else is going in that range? Justin Fields are in round 5 or 6. I would take them. You could even get, if Drake May or Caleb Williams or JJ McCarthy or Trevor Lawrence, if any of those guys are in round 6 or 7, grab them. Grab them. I still want, even in a league, a super flex league that waits on quarterbacks, I want to be the guy that goes and gets the quarterbacks. That's where I'm willing to be aggressive at quarterback. Super flex formats where I know my league mates will wait. I'll be the one to be aggressive to go get the quarterbacks while everybody else picks up the scraps later. That would be my strategy. Yeah. Stud running back or wide receiver round 1. Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson round 2. Good wide receivers and or running back, some combination of those 2 in rounds 3 and 4. And then start looking at quarterback again, rounds 5 or 6. That's what I would do. Okay. Keeper league trade. And then I got a wrap. But I appreciate everybody coming in and hanging out today. Hopefully this exercise was fun. Hopefully the mock draft was fun, helpful, informative. Hopefully the stream in general was helpful and informative. As we continue to inch closer to the start of the season. Trade AJ Brown and a 9th round pick for a 4th pick. My question to you about Amari and Hampton is, with all of the keepers in your league, is Amari and Hampton going to be there at the 401? Assuming that a lot of people get kept, is Hampton going to be there? Or are keepers going to prevent him from lasting that long, and he's going to be a late 2nd, early 3rd round pick? If you know definitively for sure that Amari and Hampton is going to be there, then okay, fine. You can make the trade because AJ Brown is dealing with a hamstring injury. And if you're, worried about his availability and you want to move off of him and you want to trade up for a better pick, then okay, fine. But that is a pretty steep price to pay for a draft pick where Hampton might not still be there. I don't know how many keepers your league has. I don't know how many players are getting kept. I don't know how many players who are getting drafted ahead of Hampton are getting kept at a lower cost, therefore pushing his price up. If you know definitively he's going to be there and you believe in the player, then sure, make the trade. But if other guys whose ADP are higher than Hampton's are getting kept, that's going to push Hampton up the board, and then he maybe is not available to you at the 4th round pick, and now you're scrambling to pick up a player that you weren't planning to take when you could have just kept A.J. Brown. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of variables at play. There's a lot of different questions that I think you need to answer about, like, is Hampton's price going to be there? Are people going to wait on him that long? Does your league prioritize drafting running backs? And are they going to wait on Amari and Hampton, especially when when you draft, when the time comes to draft, and if Najee Harris is still dealing with this eye injury and is not practicing, Hampton's ADP is going to keep going up regardless of whether there are keepers or not. So I don't know that he's going to be available to you there. So you can make the trade, but you have to know that Hampton is going to be there. And you know that based on, I guess, who is available to get drafted and what are the tendencies of your league mates. If they prioritize running back, Hampton might not last to the 401. So you may need to, try to secure a better pick, a higher pick, if you want to secure Amari and Hampton. I don't know that he lasts to the 401. That being said, those keepers are really, really good. Gibbs, Brian Thomas, Chase Brown, those picks are, or those keepers are excellent. So you're in a great spot. I just don't know that given the construct of your keeper draft that Hampton will be there at the 4th pick. I have a super from Steven. Really appreciate that. Really appreciate the super. Very kind of you, Steven. How do I feel about Debo, Mason, and Njoku this year? So Debo, I was initially out on, just after last year left such a bad taste in all of our mouths after how poor of a performance, how far of a cliff he seemed to fall off, Debo did. But he might be a bit of a focal point of this offense now, of Washington's offense. Terry McLaurin is still in the midst of this contract dispute. Brian Robinson is on the way out. Debo has experience in that wide back role. Do I think he's going to get significant usage as a running back? No. Chris Rodriguez, Austin Eckler, Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt, Bill, and Jeremy McNichols presumably are going to lead the Commanders' backfield moving forward. Debo, however, figures to have an increased chance to mix in there now, and he's going to probably need to see increased usage out of necessity for as long as McLaurin is away from the team. And McLaurin has been away from the team for a while. Cadence, timing, rhythm, work with the first-team offense. I know he's a vet, but he has missed all of this time, whereas Debo has been getting it. So Debo in the 6th, 7th round, I'm fine with. Jordan Mason in the 8th round, I'm okay with. I still believe in Aaron Jones. I've always been an Aaron Jones truther, and I want to believe that he's going to continue to have a significant role with the Vikings because I believe they upped his contract or they re-signed him. They gave him a little more money, I think. He's a vet at this point. They probably want to ease his workload, and that's why they prioritize trading for Mason, and they've talked about using him on the goal line. So I think he's going to be a good spot play here and there, and it's a good offense with a good offensive line. So I'm good with Mason, but I'm not like bullishly taking him over Aaron Jones. I am fine with either one of those running backs. I still slightly lean Jones, but I'm fine ending up with Mason in the 8th or 9th round. But I think his usage is like am I starting him in my fantasy lineup perspective? I think it's going to be a little bit more situational and matchup based. I don't think he's going to be an automatic plug and play for as long as Jones is healthy. We'll see. We'll see how things play out. Obviously, the Vikings prioritized acquiring him because they traded draft capital to get him. That stuff matters, and this is a good offense. We have high expectations for the Vikings. So I like Mason, but I also still like Aaron Jones. I'm not definitively done with Aaron Jones just yet. And then Njoku, 8th, 9th round, that's a pretty good tight end target right now that Joe Flacco is going to be the quarterback for the first month of the season, or that's just my personal. I'm expecting Flacco for the first 4 weeks, and then we'll reevaluate. Depending if the Browns are 0-4 or 1-3, do they move to Dylan Gabriel? Do they move to Shedeur Sanders? Does Flacco keep the job all season long? I don't know. It might be a gross musical chair situation for the Browns quarterbacks all season long, but the pass catchers have a great chance now to get off to a super strong start to at least begin the season. Njoku has top 5 upside, I would say, for at least the first month of the season, as long as Flacco is the quarterback. I am happy to draft him in the 8th or 9th round. You may need to figure something out after that. If Gabriel or Sanders is in there and they're just not, elevating the offense, they need time to develop and get their feet wet, and the pass catchers take a hit, then you might need to stream the position. But for those first 3-4 weeks, Njoku should have top 5 upside, as long as he's catching the ball from Joe Flacco. But I like Njoku a little bit more this year now, at least to begin, at least to start. As long as Flacco's in there, I feel good about Njoku. He's got a chance to get off to a great start. I think he has top 5 upside at the position now, now that it's confirmed. We knew Flacco was going to be the quarterback to start the season. Now it's confirmed. So we definitively can feel good about Njoku for now. Hopefully that continues throughout the year. Flacco's got to keep the job, though, and he may lose it through no fault of his own because the Browns are very much transitioning. But appreciate the super, Steven. Thank you very much. Really, really appreciate the support. Over the course of the season, membership questions, comments, and super questions and comments will get priority responses out of order from the general public questions and comments. So just another FYI as we get closer and closer to the season. If it's something that you want to consider as far as becoming a member, details can be found in the first link of in the description of this live stream and all streams and videos on the channel. Thank you again, Steven. Appreciate it. Let me know if there's anything else I can help you with. Although I am wrapping up this stream somewhat shortly. Been at it for 3.5 hours. It's been fun. But I got to eat dinner. But if you have any other questions, if anybody has any other questions, if you miss me, feel free to leave your question in the form of a comment on this live stream or any other stream or video on the channel. But I do see one more here. In full PPR, this is tough. I guess I organically, naturally lean the running back. Nico is my wide receiver 5 on the season, and Christian McCaffrey is my running back, I guess, 4 on the season. So they're neck and neck. They're right there. I would say my answer to this question is, who do you think is going to be available to you at your second pick? If you like, if you think you're at the 108, 10-team PPR. So, do you think Drake London or Brian Thomas or A.J. Brown, hopefully he's healthy, hopefully he's, the hamstring injury is minor. If you like those wide receivers and you like them more than the running backs that'll be available to you, then I would take maybe Christian McCaffrey. If you think that if you like the running backs in the second round more than the wide receivers, Bucky Irving, Jonathan Taylor, Chase Brown, Josh Jacobs, if you like them more than the wide receivers in the second round, then take Nico Collins in the first round. I would say bank it on. And if you start, it depends on, do you start 2 wide receivers or do you start 3 wide receivers? If you start 3 wide receivers and you need to get that third wide receiver spot locked in every week, then maybe go Nico. If you only start 2 wide receivers, then maybe go McCaffrey. And then factor in who you think is going to be available to you at your second pick. Look at the names that you think is going to be available to you at your second pick and maybe allow that to influence your decision a little bit. Always look down the board as far as you can, as much as you can, while keeping an eye on your current pick. The names that you expect to be available later to you help influence what you choose to do now. If there's a running back that you like a round and a half from now that you're pretty confident that you could get, then take the wide receiver now. If there's a wide receiver that you like down the board and you think you can get him at an ADP that you're willing to take him, and that maybe you'd be willing to take him higher than that, then take the running back now, grab the wide receiver later. 2 wide receivers and a flex. So I would probably, even though it's full PPR, I would maybe deprioritize wide receiver a little bit because you only have to start 2 of them and get the stud, with high expectations at running back in McCaffrey. That's probably where I would go. And then you can get a really good wide receiver still in the second round to fill in one of those starting wide receiver spots. That's probably what I would do. All right. We are at the end of the chat. So I'm going to call this here. But I appreciate everybody's time. Appreciate everybody coming in and hanging out. Thank you to everybody who joined the mock draft today. It was fun. Hopefully you guys found that helpful and insightful. Special shout out to my members. I saw Jake. I don't know if I saw other members, but that's okay. They will for sure make their way in here over the course of the season. Thank you to Steven for the super. Very kind of you. Really appreciate that. And everyone else, thank you guys for your time, for coming in and for hanging out. Everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy whatever it is that you're doing and have fun and stay safe. I will be back Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Really quick, I prefer Puka to Brian Thomas. They're all really good, but I prefer Puka to Brian Thomas, especially with Matthew Stafford returning to practice. But that'll do it for me for tonight. I'll be back Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern. We can run this mock draft back as we continue to inch closer and closer to the end of draft season and the beginning of the regular season. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.